Yes, I'm late. We're late. It's late. It's Halloween weekend, y'all. But we're here to talk about Maelys the Monstrous. And Maelys the Monstrous is a pretty interesting Targaryen. You know, we're continuing our series of Freako Targaryens. We talked about Maegor and Visenya and Parthenogenesis last week. Thanks for watching. And Grey Waste Tim he's taken the stream hostage today. He's threatened us with the 13th Blackfyre Rebellion or whatever it would be. And so I complied. And exciting part is that there's a bit about Maelys the Monstrous and the Ninepenny Kings, which is one of the Blackfyre Rebellions. I don't know which one. You have to ask Tim. But the point is, there was some deleted, which you can see the pages on the screen. Some stuff. Is this from A Feast for Crows?
Yeah, these are the original draft pages of A Feast for Crows.
And so we've got some really some interesting Blackfyres have dragon eggs maybe, and just a lot of interesting info about Maelys the Monstrous and the Ninepenny Kings. So we will both go over the basic stuff from the world of Ice and Fire that we know from the onset about Maelys and the Ninepennies. And then we'll get into this stuff and some notes that Tim has prepared about why the Blackfyres are the rightful rulers of Westeros. I mean, summarizing the events of the War of the Ninepenny Kings. And so that's Halloween. Happy Halloween. Yeah. Hey, Tim.
Spooky season is far from over, and so we are going to talk about a monstrous character. We are going to talk about Maelys the Monstrous. And this comes from the draft pages for A Feast for Crows. And I need to give a shout out to Quinn, the GM, who did few months back, he did a Maelys the Monstrous video. This is how I even came to know that these exist. But back in 2004, before the split, before Feast and Dance were split into two books, originally there's supposed to be one book. Jon, Dany, Tyrion were originally supposed to have chapters, and these are George's working drafts. They are currently held. I have it in my notes.
Cushing Library, is it?
Yeah, the Cushing Memorial Library at Texas A&M. So in these draft pages, there is another Lost Tyrion chapter in which Tyrion sits on a history lesson with Fagon, my name is Fagon, and Holden Halfmaester. And this becomes the third time that we know of now in which a Tyrion chapter has had to be either scrapped or completely rewritten because it gave away too much. The first is the Lost Shrouded Lord chapter. George wrote a chapter in which Tyrion meets the Shrouded Lord, but decided to not throw it away, but to table it, put it in his desk, because he felt that it was too high fantasy for where the story was at that time. And the second time is a original reading, the chapter where Tyrion is traveling with Illyrio when they first meet Griff and young Griff and their whole team. In the original chapter, Illyrio and Holden begin speaking in High Valyrian, and Tyrion is able to pick out a few words, two of which are king and sword. George completely rewrote that chapter because he felt that those two words, just those two words, gave away too much. And if those two words gave away too much, then these 5.5 pages from this lost history lesson, they basically give away the whole game, because it is all about the War of the Ninepenny Kings, Maelys the Monstrous, and what was ultimately the 5th Blackfyre Rebellion. And a little behind the scenes for those of you. A few weeks ago, Dave put out his Aryan Bright Flame video. He called me up asking for my opinion on, where he was asking me about Bright Flame theory, and my response to him was literally, I hate Bright Flame theory, and I will bludgeon it to death with Blackfyre evidence.
And then I didn't get another word in for like 10 minutes, basically.
Because I started diving into this. And so I was like, that was when I decided, I'm like, we just straight up need to do a stream on these 5.5 pages so I can kind of prove my point even further.
And of course, that won't be the main thrust of the stream, but I guess we'll address it as it comes up. I think most people are only vaguely aware of what that theory entails. Aryan went over to Lys, and maybe that's tied into the Blackfyre somehow and Fagon, and it's pretty murky. I mean, I had to call you up and check out some Reddit stuff just to even see what the theory was. After taking a look at it, I did kind of tend to agree with you. I thought there was more there to support it. And it does seem more like something that George, originally his whole plan for the Blackfyre stuff was going to be Aerian's line, and then he sort of just changed his mind and developed Daemon Blackfyre, and Aerian just became a lost Targaryen. That's basically your opinion, right?
Yeah, the crux of it is that George it was an answer to a question a fan had asked back in 1998 after the first Dunk and Egg novel had come out, where someone asked about Aerion Brightflame, and George had said that Aerion did not spend all of his time in Westeros, that he spent some time in Lys and may have fathered some bastards there. That is it. And in 27 years, again, this is 1998, he says this as an answer to a question. In 27 years, he has done absolutely nothing with that. But what he has done is in each preceding Dunk and Egg novel, it became more and more about the Blackfyre. So what I seem to think is that George may have had an idea early on with Aerion Brightflame, but then he thought up of the Blackfyres, and he became interested in these new toys. And it becomes that Toy Story meme. I don't want to play with you anymore. Once he gets once these Blackfyres start coming more into prominence. And
well, another problem is that it doesn't seem to be much of a point. It's like, and the Blackfyre and Fagon is also like, it doesn't replace Blackfyre theory. It's like a topper that you put on top, like sprinkling the keef on the bowl or something. And I just don't know that it's really adding any flavor. It just kind of it just ties Aerian's loose thread into it. That's essentially what it accomplishes from like a storytelling perspective. So like there's not parallels between Fagon and Aerion, really.
No, it's completely It's completely unnecessary. And like I said, in nearly 3 decades, he's done absolutely nothing with it. So
yeah, okay. Well, put your blowtorch away, Tim, and we will start with what we know about all this crap from the world of Ice and Fire, because of course Fire and Blood does not get this far. We do not get this. This will be during the end of Egg's reign, essentially. King Aegon V, aka Duncan Egg. He's king, and Summerhall is in 259 AC, and so the War of the Ninepenny Kings, it kind of starts brewing in the end of his reign, and then gets dealt with by King Jaehaerys I, or the second rather, King Jaehaerys II, who takes over after Egg. Is that Egg's son or grandson?
His son.
Okay.
It is his second son. His eldest son is Prince Duncan, Prince of the Dragonflies, but Duncan abdicates so that he can marry Jenny of Oldstone. So then it goes to his second eldest son, who is Jaehaerys II.
And now that I've got everyone's attention, let me bum rush you with an attempt to convince you to watch some of my other stuff that I'm doing here. Because, it's got to pay the bills. And in case you missed it, first of all, I put this video out this week. I put it out late. It came out like Thursday afternoon, so it's possible with the Halloween shuffle, some of you guys missed it. It's a very Halloween-themed video, Visenya's unnatural conception of Maegor. This is Visenya Gecko Theory, Maegor the Mutant, all that stuff that I've been talking about for a few years. A shout out to Minty Maelstrom, who's been bugging me to do that one forever. And then... let's see. Last Sunday, we did Symbolism of the Night's Watch, and that is in addition to the Cold Hands video, where we went through all the symbolism of the various Watchmen, most of them being green men and a few of them being some other things. And then over on Script Wolves, my other channel, which you can find linked in the description below, we've put out a couple of interesting videos, Mickey and I, recently. And our newest one is... this one, ADHD supervillain, because I don't know if you'd call him the main villain, but one of the villains of the story, Tim, they've said flat out in the thing that he has severe ADHD. And so me and Mickey both have a touch of it. And so we basically got into the making of a villain with ADHD and how they did that. We both thought it was done thoughtfully. So those are our thoughts on that. And then last week, we did this one, and if you're watching Alien and this channel, then you're definitely going to want to watch this. our comparison of Wendy and Danny, mother of monsters, because they both are. So, with that being said, yes, a touch of the 80. We have 80 HDs at least. I have at least 80 myself. So, in any case, Tim, do you want to pick up here with N258 on Essos?
Sure. In 258 AC on Essos, another challenge rose to Aegon's reign when 9 outlaws, exiles, pirates, and sellsword captains met in the disputed lands beneath the Tree of Crowns to form an unholy alliance. The Band of Nine swore their oath of mutual aid and support in carving out kingdoms for each of their members. Amongst them was the last Blackfyre, Maelys the Monstrous, who had command of the Golden Company and the kingdom they pledged to win. For him was the Seven Kingdoms. Prince Duncan, when told of the pact, famously remarked that crowns were being sold 9 a penny. Thereafter, the Band of Nine became known as the Ninepenny Kings in Westeros.
I didn't know Dunk named them.
Prince Duncan, Prince of Dragonflies.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. That would have been funnier if it was Dunk. But
Our Dunk, yeah.
I guess we don't know anything about Duncan of Dragonflies, so that's cool. He's named after Dunk, at least.
Yep. It was thought at first that the free cities of Essos would surely bring their power against them and put an end to their pretensions, but nonetheless, preparations were made should Maelys and his allies turn on the Seven Kingdoms. But there was no great urgency to them, and King Aegon remained intent on his reign, and intent on one more thing, dragons. As he grew older, Aegon V had come to dream of dragons flying once more above the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros.
And you could stop it there. It's basically going to go into telling the Summerhall story. So basically that's the end of the reign. And it doesn't say anything more about Nine Pennies until we get to Jaehaerys. So I just wanted to read that bit so you can see it's starting to brew. And Egg's like, yeah. Well, there's a bunch of screw-offs and, crowns, 9 a penny, blah, blah, blah. Let's, bring dragons back. So.
Yeah, and that is going to be a running thing here, is that this is a problem that was allowed to grow exponentially out of control. Egg saw these Band of Nine of pirates and thieves and criminals, is like, yeah, okay, but they're really not going to make it any far. They'll probably never. Nobody's been ever. There's constant squabbles in the disputed lands. It's going on for centuries. It's where a lot of these free companies, many of the members of whom are captains of, even get their start. It's like, this thing's gonna fizzle out. And boy, was Egg wrong, because it just kept growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, and it's one of those repeated plot points here. But there's two of them. One, the entire Blackfyre rebellion story device, as we've said many times, it's sort of an amalgam of different things from British history. But in the most interesting parts of medieval British history, there is constantly a threat of a king across the water with a, lineal claim to the throne that's been ignored and shunned for some reason, that dreams of taking it back. They come from Scandinavia, from Denmark, from northern France, Frankish territory. It's the William the Conqueror was a Norman, so it's this constant thing where, like, the throne of England, it's got all these connections to the royal houses of the countries I just named. And so occasionally there are third cousins and things who gain support when there is a corrupt king on the throne, more or less. And so that's what's happening with the Blackfyres. And we also see, going a little in more detail, like on House of the Dragon, the Stepstones. That's where, like, the story starts in season 1. There's trouble in the Stepstones. The pirates are getting a little organized, and one of them's calling themselves a lord and starting to get a little bold. And should we go deal with that? And it's like, oh, we got problems at home too. So, how long do we let it simmer before we actually put our attention on it?
Exactly. And then, and so like the Stepstones, the disputed lands, the Basilisk Isles. These are these places that are constantly in chaos, and that's why these guys with big dreams are able to find footholds there, but usually nothing ever really comes of it. But for some reason, this Band of Nine just kept going and going and going. And until we get to full out war, where they actually are able to take the disputed lands, take Tyrosh, and take the Stepstones, and from there they have a huge launch point to get to Westeros.
And of course, this is the invasion of Westeros is always like an invasion of moon meteors every time, whether it's the Ironborn or it's Targaryens. Okay, so Aegon and his sisters, they come from Dragonstone, and then they land on Westeros, King's Landing. All right, so that's already like a dragon meteor landing. And if you think about Dragonstone, the island, it's a bunch of stone dragons all pressed together, which is exactly what the moon was before it exploded into 1,000 dragons. So the dragon meteors come from Dragonstone, and they land on Westeros. And Dany's going to do it again if she comes from Dragonstone. Then we have the Stepstones, where there's Bloodstone Island. That's where the Hammer of the Waters fell, which if you believe in moon meteor theory, then Hammer of the Waters is a moon meteor impact site. And George is planting a flag on it by calling it Bloodstone Island and having evil Targaryens, quote unquote, like Daemon, go there. And also Rhaegar with green eyes. What's his name? Orain Waters.
Yeah.
So Euron is another pirate, Azor Ahai. The Red Kraken, he's in the Stepstones as well in his youth.
Yep, and in Fire and Blood, we end with Recalio Rendoon, who seems less and less likely to show up in Hot D. It seems like his story has been interweaved with Lasaro's, but they may play up so that Lasaro becomes the next king of the Stepstones after since Daemon has relinquished his crown.
Yes, I am fondling a sword over here. I'm stroking it. I just needed something to play with. Oh, I also do have my fume fidget for a breath of minty goodness. Rhaegar's really knocking it out with those ads. By the way, I've got some good ads coming next month. One of them is for Adam and Eve, which they make like sex toys and stuff. So I'm sure Rhaegar will cook up something nice for them. And got a standing desk company. You guys know how I feel about that. I am trying very hard to not tell you about NordVPN and fucking, all that stuff over and over again. Like, seriously, like if I wanted to.
Way to just demonetize us.
No, if usually just one will sail through okay. It's when you start throwing a bunch of them. That was pretty flagrant, though. I'm sorry if there are any children in the car listening. Apologies. But yeah, point is, I have basically told my ad people, who are the best in the business, it is YouTuber owned. It is a collective owned thing. That I don't want to do any VPNs or delete me or any of that stuff. I think that stuff's kind of fraudy and overhyped, and so I'm trying to find, like I said, good companies. Fume is awesome. The Standing Desk is going to be awesome. So, I'm trying to give Rhaegar good stuff to work with. Back to the topic. Sorry. Housekeeping. I do have fun, clearly, doing those, though.
Which is good. That's the way an ad should be. It should be the ad should be as entertaining as the video.
I resent ads if they are not funny, basically. Yeah. All right, so the tragedy of Summerhall brought Jaehaerys, second of his name, to the Iron Throne in 259 AC. Scarcely had he donned the crown, then the Seven Kingdoms found themselves plunged into war, for the Ninepenny Kings had taken and sacked the free city of Tyrosh and seized the Stepstones, and from there they stood poised to attack Westeros. So, we've got this breakdown of the Nine. Tim, I know you have this in more detail. Should we just flip over to your notes instead of reading this part?
Oh, sure. We can.
You've got everything that's here in your notes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I will blow these up a bit so we can read them. And just a little bit smaller. 1 second.
Yeah, so this was part of the opening. Yeah, I talked it. Third time.
But before we read the whole thing, let's go through the Nine, and then we'll come back and finish this story, and then we'll read the script. So
yeah,
here we go.
So first we have.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the wrong thing. There you go.
Yeah. So this history lesson that we're going to read focuses on the Band of Nine, and the members are first we have the Old Mother, and she is simply described as a pirate queen. However, my tinfoil activating is that this may be a possible reference to the real life pirate queen Zhang Yizhao. She was active in the South China Sea. She lived to be 68. She had 3 sons, all of whom she raised to be pirates. She is known as history's most successful pirates and one of the most successful pirates at all time. At her peak, she had a crew numbering somewhere between 40 to 60,000. And what makes this interesting is because the War of the Ninepenny Kings is sort of like a Song of Ice and Fire's equivalent of a world war. And if George is, in fact, referencing Zhang Yishao, then this opens the door for a Yi Ti-ish or Lengi character, which is something we haven't had. And depending on how world-encompassing George wants to make this, that would be something to bring on, especially since we have a literal old pirate mother in history.
I love this, Tim, and it makes a ton of sense because Yitish is a empire that has always had a navy, and the Langi are part of the Yitish Empire now. But even going back to the Great Empire of the Dawn, the Great Empire of the Dawn we know was a maritime culture because they conquered Lang. So when Great Empire of the Dawn broke up, we should assume that there already is a lot of sailing culture. Of course, the Jade Sea, look how it's structured. You know, it's kind of like the Mediterranean, approximately, where there's this circular, oval-shaped area, and there's port cities all around and islands in the middle. It naturally leads itself to maritime culture. So, yeah, I love this. I mean, you're filling in the blanks here, potentially. But, George, if you're listening.
Yeah. And we know that it's not out of the norm for someone from Yi Ti or somewhere as far flung to go west. Danny sees them at Vastothrock in the eastern markets. There are merchants from Yi Ti. There are even she even sees shadow men from Ashai selling their wares. They set up shop, and so it makes sense that a Yi Ti-ish pirate would also take advantage of this. The Jade Gates, the Carthene Straits, and a lot of pirates. Like some pirates, yeah, they were just straight up pirates, but other pirates were actually hired by governments. English pirates, or as they would call themselves, privateers.
Privateers, yes.
Privateers. So it is possible that Yi Ti has its own privateers. And then, of course, the real life Zhang Yishao, again, she lived to be 68. You don't live to be that long as a pirate without making a lot of alliances and greasing some hands. She basically, what the Imperial Chinese government was never really able to bring her down. They could more or less just kind of appease her, and she becomes more of a famous historical figure and folklore legend than anything. She isn't brought down like your average run of the mill pirate.
Bro, 40 to 60,000 pirates organized
And raising
That's
your
insane.
Son,
That's insane. Like that is 10,000 is crazy.
mm-hmm.
Old Mother's son is a galley in Salvador San's fleet. Yes, that certainly would be a reference to this. Nice call, XGN 812. Yeah. Did you know that, Tim?
And of course we have so we branch off from that, a mother who raised her sons to be pirates, and then we get to the sons, who are literally a family of pirates. Piracy is the family business. So our second member is Samaro-san, who calls himself the last Valyrian. And given the timeline, he could be the father or maybe even grandfather of our current San in our main story, Salador-san, who is the current prince, now titling himself the Prince of the Narrow Sea. And in this lost chapter, it is Samaro-san who gifts Maelys with scrolls containing information on how to hatch dragon eggs. So somebody
was saying, Tim, that your pirate queen she gave people health care in some sense. Yeah, she does need a Netflix series. Great call. All right.
Yeah. For those interested, I would highly encourage people to look into the real history of Zhang Yishao. She's a very, very interesting historical figure.
Yeah, I mean, again, Lady Pirate is definitely a good start. But 60,000 pirates organized. That's insane. Like there's obviously a story there. 68 sons. This is great. She's the Genghis Khan of
No,
pirates.
she lived to be 68. That's why I said old mother. She had 3 sons and
I didn't
possibly
mean
a daughter.
68. I was thinking like sons and grandsons, but yes, I screwed that up either way. So yeah, but one imagines like
Mhm.
her offspring would be well positioned to take over.
Mhm.
Anyways, yes, Netflix. Let's go. Um, so Samaro San, possibly the father or grandfather of Salador San. This is in 259,
Mhm.
and the story's in 300, and Salah is probably in his like what 30s or something.
Yeah, I would assume he's near the. If he's not as old as Davos, he's at least near the age of Stannis, and Stannis is 30, either 34 or 36, I believe, in the current story.
Yeah, so probably grandfather. It could be either. It depends. We don't really know the ages of anyone, but yeah, it's no more than grandfather, so that's cool. And you said
Mhm.
he gifts Maelys with scrolls containing information on how to hatch dragon eggs.
Yeah,
Is that in the
in,
deleted part?
in the deleted part,
Okay,
yeah.
we'll get to that. That's a good tease. And then we got
Zobar Joqua. Uh, Not sure about the pronunciations of some of these, but that sounds right to me. But the Ebon Prince, an exile prince from the Summer Isles, who founded and led a sellsword company in the disputed land. So again, we're getting very worldly here because now we have a Summer Islander, um, and a sellsword company, presumably also of Summer Islanders. And in our main story, we have another exiled prince from the Summer Islands, who's staying with King Robert, trying to convince him to help get back his throne as he wants.
that's cool. Yep. I guess it's just sort of what's been going on. There's always an exiled prince from the Summer Islands hanging around King's Landing
Mhm.
or somewhere trying to take back the homeland. Um, it's you have a feeling like the people that get exiled from the Summer Islands probably get exiled for just being too rowdy and violent. So it makes sense that they're the people that like, I'm gonna go conquer the summer. Like you don't get it. Like you clearly missed something about what they're doing there in general.
Yeah. Well, it's said in the Summer Islands that war there isn't really war.
It's
Uh,
ritualized.
it's ritualized. So I think what happens, the exiled Summer Islanders are the ones who take it past ritual and actually start committing violent acts. That's what I think. That's how these guys end up in exile. It's like you took it too far. It was supposed to like we were playing touch football. You tackled him and broke his legs. Like that's the vibe.
I'm just using right, exactly, Stephanie. Like the only way to keep a place chill is you kind of have to make the people who aren't chill go somewhere else.
Mhm.
So, um, Spotted Tom.
Yeah. Next we have Spotted Tom, known as the Butcher. Don't know really much about him. Just says he's from Westeros. So again, a lot. George is keeping his options very, very open with these guys. But in the in this draft chapter, we do get a few more tidbits about him. He is captain of the Maiden's Men in this original draft. And the Maiden's Men is a free company whose name has come up in other parts of the story. The Tattered Prince was a member before founding the Windblown. Sir Oren Baratheon. He is one of the Baratheons who rises up in a failed coup against King Jaehaerys Jaehaerys the Conciliator. In his exile, he takes up service with the Maiden's Men. And then Bittersteel, when Bittersteel and his co-conspirators flee across the Narrow Sea, some of them end up joining with the Maiden's Men and other free companies. Bittersteel himself, he takes up service with the Second Sons, but it's in this moment is when Bittersteel starts seeing like all of his supporters are going away. They're getting caught up in the wind, and as a way of trying to keep everyone together, so, under one roof, he starts learning the tricks of the trade with the Second Sons, and that's when he founds the Golden Company. And the big push of establishing the Golden Company is trying to keep all of these guys who came over with him all under one roof. Sorry. Instead of them getting scattered to the winds and joining up with all these other free companies.
Well, no, it was sounding good for a second, Tim. What'd you do there?
I got too grandiose and hit my mic.
Well, yeah, but when you were fixing it, it was sounding good. You need to move it closer still.
Right.
I'm not happy until that thing, you're bonking your nose. Yeah, I want you to be right up on that thing.
All right, I think we're good now.
Yeah, see, that's the closer you get, the sexier you sound. We'll put it that way. Show your tattoos off, dude. Show your tats, man.
I don't have any tats. Those are sleeves.
Oh,
Tats are all.
oh, you fooled me with that before too. I saw your Halloween picture. It looked like you had crazy fucking. There you go. This stream is demonic. Screw it. I don't care. It's Maelys the Monstrous. Take that, YouTube censors. Anyway, all right. So I'm unhinged. So the Maiden's Men are named after what?
Well, I would assume that that this is invoking the seven, the Mother, Maiden, and Crone.
Okay, so
this is the founder of this free company is Westerosi.
Okay, that was what I was getting after. That's cool. So the Maiden's Men. That's funny. That's interesting. And that's Spotted Tom. So Spotted Tom, that's like Child of the Forest symbolism. Tomcat, spotted, like the children's, the dappled skin. So this is a Westerosi free company, the Maiden's Men. It could be like Nissanissa's army, kind of, as far as symbolism goes. But
yeah. Well, like I said, the big thing is it seems like the Maiden's Men is like, that kind of becomes one of everyone's starting point. They start off in the Maiden's Men, then they go on to do bigger and better things.
Let's see. Maelys the Demonetized. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Sir Derek Fossaway, the Bat. You gotta love those Fossaways and their nicknames. So, the Bad Apple.
Known as the Bad Apple, an exile from Westeros, a knight with a black reputation, though it is not explicitly stated if he was a red apple or a green apple Fossaway. Though I do note the current Golden Company has a Fossaway bastard, Sir Franklin Flowers, who is the bastard of Cider Hall, and he refers to himself as the Brown Apple. So Cider Hall would mean that he is a red apple Fossaway. And so far, that is the second time we've had a sort of bad red apple. Our first one comes in the Hedge Knight. That is where we actually get the establishment of the green apple Fossaways. But yeah, so if Derek Fossaway does end up being a red apple, like there's nothing right now saying that all red apples are bad and all green apples are good, but at the moment, the red apple Fossaways seem to be producing the low-life Fossaways.
George likes his tart green apples. Thinks those red ones are just trash. Which Red Delicious are trash, of course, and that's what George would have been thinking of. He definitely would have been raised on crappy, dry, mush, tasteless, Red Delicious apples. So he's like, screw the red ones. Now we have Honeycrisp. It's fine now. The genetic engineering people have figured this out or whatever. Yeah, we used to have to eat green ones just to get flavor, but the greens are a little much, let's be honest. All right, so good to cook with, though. Like, if you're doing some caramel, brown sugar type of thing, throw those green apples in there. And did I throw out another F-bomb? It's only 2, right?
We might be up to 3 now.
I don't feel like I have control of my mouth today. I will just say that.
Who's counting?
Some fucking AI. That's the answer.
You have no one to blame but yourself if this gets demonetized.
Yep, that's true.
Okay, moving on. Having fun. Okay,
you guys send me some super chats, so this isn't a complete waste of my time, financially speaking. Obviously, it's bringing me joy, so that's something.
So our next member is a guy known as Nine Eyes, and we know absolutely nothing about this guy except that he is captain of a pirate crew known as the Jolly Fellows. However, in this draft, he is originally known as Rogo the Red Jester. So part of me always thinks of Gold. I think of Gold Roger in that sense. If I think of the character Gold Roger, a pirate who's always smiling, wears a lot of red, and captain of a group called the Jolly Fellows. But I don't know if George is invoking that. I just know if he does end up using the character Gold Roger as a frame of reference for Nine Eyes, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I think of Rogo the Red Jester. It sounds a little bit like Bonobo the Dwarf in the Red Hand play that's reference to Tyrion. Nine Eyes. Also, anytime I think of nine symbolism, I think of obviously King of Winter Crown, Grove of Nine, but also Knight of Nine Stars from the Vale, who's got some interesting symbolism.
Yeah.
So
There's
what do you?
also people are bringing up Captain Hook. Yeah, because Captain Hook wore a red cloak, and his ship was the Jolly Roger. And the Jolly Roger is just a typical name for the classic pirate flag of the skull and crossbones.
Right. Okay, that all makes sense. Sorry, let me. Okie doke. Thanks for joining the Squishers there. Slide 99. Also a good way to support the program. No, wait, Nine of Stars Tarot. What's on there? Yeah, let me know. George does know his tarot. Captain Nine Eyes of the Jolly Fellows. Yeah, he's good at inventing nicknames. There's no doubt about that. So then we've got Alequo Adares, the Silver Tongue, called the Tyrant of Tyrosh later. He is a Tyroshi merchant prince, ambitious and wealthy.
Yeah, and of what we know of the Band of Nine, he's the only one we definitively know actually got what he set out for, because after taking the disputed lands, their next target is Tyrosh, and they are able to take it. And Aliquo is able to hold on to it for 6 years, even after the war has ended. Now, in the draft, he's originally called Golden Tongue, but in the World of Ice and Fire, it then changes to Silver Tongue. Golden Tongue and Silver Tongue can both mean the same thing, being able to speak in eloquent, persuasive ways. However, Silver Tongue, that implies more of a smooth talking, cunning treachery. That's more of a Golden Tongue. It seems more valid, while Silver Tongue gives you more of that sleazy car salesman type vibe.
That makes sense. And
Another thing though is that Golden Tongue has a specific meaning in ancient Egyptian burial practice, where a piece of gold was placed in the mouth of the deceased to grant them the ability to speak in the afterlife, particularly to the gods. So George, if he does want to, he may tend to invoke this. Perhaps maybe when Aliquo takes Tyrosh, he'll upgrade from Silver Tongue to Golden Tongue or something like that.
and thank you, Baby the Bard. You definitely owed me that. You encourage all of my filth. There's no doubt. So I appreciate you taking ownership. And what do you think the reference to the Egyptian burial practice would be about, potentially?
I think we'll get more into that when we get to Lyman Lashar and then burying the guy underneath the tree.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got this guy, Maelys Blackfyre. Heard of him.
Yeah. Maelys Blackfyre, known as the Monstrous, Captain General the Captain General Greywaste Tim to you out there of the Golden Company. And then our final member is Lymon Lashar, the Lord of Battles, a famed sellsword captain. Now, what's interesting is in the draft version, Lyman is not a member. He's instead replaced with a Marinese nobleman named Corzo Zomarak, called the Basilisk. Lyman is meant to be the group 10 member, but he refuses to join. The other 9 then kill him and bury him beneath the Tree of Crowns. Now, for whatever reason, George decided to change this and make Lyman part of the Band of Nine, so he could easily replace it and have it so that Corzo is the guy they kill and bury. But either way, they're killing a guy and burying him underneath the Tree of Crowns, and originally this was supposed to be a band of 10.
Interesting. So let's flip back over to here. So Jaehaerys had known that the Band of Nine meant to win the Seven Kingdoms for Maelys the Monstrous, who had declared himself King Maelys the First Blackfyre. But like his father Aegon, Jaehaerys had hoped the alliance of rogues would founder in Essos or fall at the hands of some alliance amongst the free cities. Now the moment was at hand, and King Aegon V was gone, as was the Prince of Dragonflies. Prince Daeron, that splendid knight, had died years before, leaving only Jaehaerys, the least martial of Aegon's 3 sons. Which Daeron is that?
Aegon's son. So Aeg has 3 sons. Duncan is the eldest, Jaehaerys is the middle, and then Daeron is the youngest. Daeron is the one who was originally betrothed to Olenna Redwine, now Olenna Tyrell. She makes it out like she broke off the engagement, but it seems more like Daeron's the one who spurned her. That seems to be the thing that all of Aeg's kids broke their marriage pacts, and it's because Daeron was gay. He had a close friend that he was very buddy with, but they both die in full of I believe it was the rat, the pig, and the hawk. That's the revolution that they die in, fighting in.
Right. Yeah, I think Olenna scared him into calling off the betrothal myself. I think that is what is implied. But we talked about that in the Olenna stream. So that's that Daeron. Very good. Interesting.
Yeah.
So the new king was 4 and 30, aka 34. As he ascended the Iron Throne, no one would have called him formidable. Unlike his brothers, Jaehaerys II Targaryen was thin and scrawny. That's mean. And had battled. I'm thin. I don't want to be called scrawny. I will you up if you call me scrawny. Anyway, I am. But I guess he's not tall. Like, that's the thing. I'm thin, but I'm tall. So it's like, an imposing scarecrow energy or something. But I guess he's scrawny and he's just small. It's not martial. And he had battled various ailments, always sickly, I see. Well, he obviously isn't smart enough to be king then. Yet he did not lack for courage or intelligence. Oh, never mind. Those 2 things don't go together, Tim. Good to know. All right. Drawing on his father's plans, his grace put aside his grief, called his lord's bannermen, and resolved to meet the Ninepenny Kings upon the stepstones, choosing to take the war to them rather than awaiting their landing on the shores of the 7 kingdoms. Sounds like a little bit of a badass, actually.
Yeah. King Jaehaerys had intended to lead the attack upon the Ninepenny Kings himself, but his hand, Lord Ormond Baratheon, persuaded him that that would be unwise. So what we got here is a king who's physically weak, he's frail, but sharp in mind and willing to do it. He's willing to go out there. So it's like what he lacks in strength, he makes up for in determination. And this is a guy who's like, you could picture Jaehaerys just in his sick bed in like his pajamas, but with like a chessboard laid out and all these scrolls, and he's like doing battle plans. And he's like, and you go there, and you go here, and I'll go home, and just devising his tactics from that, and be like, I'll be with you in spirit, leading the charge.
Yep. Well, he seems to be a good chess player. He understands that you can't just play everything close to the vest, and sometimes you have to ride out of the castle and strike down the foe. And so he's making that move here, and it seems to have worked out. So go ahead and keep going, Tim.
The king was unused to the rigors of campaign and not skilled in arms, the hand pointed out, and it would be folly to risk losing him in battle so soon after the tragedy of Summerhall. Jaehaerys finally allowed himself to be persuaded to remain at King's Landing with his queen. Command of the host was given to Lord Ormond as King's hand. In 260, this is Lord Ormond Baratheon, so this would be Robert, Stannis, and Renly's grandfather. In 260 AC, his lordship landed Targaryen armies upon 3 of the Stepstones, and the War of the Ninepenny Kings turned bloody. Battle raged across the islands and the channels between for most of that year. Maester Eon's account of the War of the Ninepenny Kings, one of the finest works of its kind, is a splendid source for the details of the fighting, with its many battles on land and sea and notable feats of arms. Lord Ormond Baratheon, the Westerosi commander, was amongst the first to perish, cut down by the hand of Maelys the Monstrous. He died in the arms of his son and heir, Stefan Baratheon. So this is King Robert's father, and this is how Stefan Baratheon becomes Lord of Storm's End. Command of the Targaryen host passed to the new young Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Gerald Hightower, the White Bull. Hightower and his men were hard-pressed for a time, but as the war hung in the balance, a young knight named Sir Barristan Selmy slew Maelys in single combat, winning undying renown and deciding the issue in a stroke for the remainder of the Ninepenny Kings, had little or no interest in Westeros and soon fell back to their own domains. Maelys the Monstrous was the fifth and last of the Blackfyre pretenders. With his death, the curse that Aegon the Unworthy had inflicted on the Seven Kingdoms by giving his sword to his bastard son was finally ended. Half a year of hard fighting remained before the Stepstones and the disputed lands were freed from the remaining band of 9, and it would be 6 years before Aliquo Adaris, the tyrant of Tyrosh, was poisoned by his queen, and the Archon of Tyrosh was restored. For the Seven Kingdoms, it had been a grand victory, though not without cost in lives or suffering.
The realm thereafter returned to peace, though never strong. Jaehaerys II proved to be a capable king, restoring order to the Seven Kingdoms and reconciling many of the great houses who had grown unhappy with the Iron Throne because of King Aegon V's attempted reforms. But his reign proved to be a short one, because in 262 AC, he sickened and died a bed after a short illness, so 3 years, basically, complaining of a sudden shortness of breath. He was but 37. And scarcely 3 years. There's Maelys the Monstrous. Well, I guess, let me see if I can blow this up. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So there's Maelys, and there's a young Barristan Selmy.
I like this picture of Maelys just because he looks kind of like just wizened and old and crazy.
This is the picture where everyone calls him Evil Santa Claus.
Yeah. I see that. Never enough evil Santa Claus in Ice and Fire. Thank you, Kirsty. And yes, we did. I didn't really make a big deal out of it, but we did pass 150K a couple weeks ago, which meant a lot to me at the time. I just didn't huzzah about it, but thank you. And I do work hard. I do have fun, and I appreciate your support. So let's see here. If you're talking about tattoos, you're way behind. You got to refresh the stream.
I mean, I do have tattoos. They're just on my legs.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't got them. It sounds awkward. So, okay. So let's see. 34 years of age. And then we get to, the Mad King.
The Mad King succeeds.
But interesting, a handsome youth, Aerys had fought gallantly in the Stepstones during the War of the Ninepenny Kings. Though not the most diligent of princes, nor the most intelligent, he had an undeniable charm that won him many friends. He was also vain, proud, and changeable, traits that made him easy prey for flatterers and lickspittles. But these were flaws not immediately apparent to most at the time of his ascension. And, let's see. Yeah, Stefan gives birth to Robert here. And the story is basically being set up. So the War of the Ninepenny Kings kind of clears the deck and resets all the leaders of the noble houses and starts all the alliances that are basically old and ripe by the time 300 AC rolls around and the main story commences.
Yeah, and I have that later on in the notes, but this is the beginnings of Sothran ambitions. The seeds have been laid, and it starts in the Stepstones.
There you go. So with that said, we will go over to the manuscript pages. Oh, let's see if I can make this bigger. I'm going to switch you with the chat real quick, chat. Oh, whoops, too far over. There we go. Okay, so I could definitely read this. I don't know if you can see it, Tim.
Oh, I have it on my other screen.
Okay. So this is, like you said, this is a history scene on the boat, on the Royan, with young Griff and Halden Halfmaester and Tyrion listening.
Yeah, so there's only 3 speaking roles in this whole thing. It's just Halden, Tyrion, and Fagon. So I assume you want to do Fagon, right?
My name is Fagon. Let's not worry about the voices. Go ahead and just You read a bit and I'll read a bit. We're looking for the lore. Most of it's going to be a monologue. So
Yeah. And it's only 5.5 pages.
there you go.
By the time they turned to history, young Griff was growing restive. We were considering the band of 9, said Halden. We're a band of 8 with Hugor, the boy said. Well, 7.5 at least, said Tyrion, and young Griff laughed. Halden Halfmaester was less amused. The band of 9 is our concern today. Tell me what you know of their formation. They met beneath an apple tree in the disputed lands, the lad replied. Golden Tongue brought the 10 of them together. There were golden apples on the tree and some windfalls scattered on the ground, but the choicest fruit was out of reach until Golden Tongue had Maelys Blackfyre boost him up. Standing on the monster's shoulders, he plucked down 10 apples, one for each of them. We could pluck 10 golden crowns as easily, he said, but only by standing on each other's shoulders. Elsewise, we must content ourselves with whatever wormy, half-rotted apples may fall to us. 8 of them were swayed by his words, but the 9th only laughed. Lyman Lashar was his name. He was called the Lord of Battles, for his company had never been defeated in the field. Make all the pacts you want, he told them. I'll still defeat you each in turn. But Spotted Tom said, not if we kill you here, all of us together. They drew their swords and cut him down and buried him beneath the tree. With bloody hands they made their pact, swearing to be faithful to one another until each of them had won a kingdom. Maps were brought forth, and the world was carved up like a side of beef at a harvest feast.
Interesting. So pausing a bit for symbolism, we've got the bloody hands of, Weirwood Leaf symbolism. We've got a pact here. So obviously this is some sort of parallel to a Weirwood pact. But the golden apples with the Hesperides. So how does that go?
It's in the notes.
Very good.
I have a whole section on the golden apples.
Okay. Do you want to talk about it now or shall we?
If you want to jump over, we can jump right over. So yeah, the golden apples. The Tree of Crowns is an apple tree in the disputed lands growing golden apples. So the disputed lands were once a rich and fertile land, but after the Century of Blood and the constant struggles between the free cities, they have since deteriorated into a wasteland. Much like the Stepstones and Bassos Isles, the disputed lands have become a haven for exiles, mercenaries, pirates, and criminals, and has become the starting ground for many free companies. Yellow apples, golden apples. So when we're talking literally yellow apples, we can think of like the yellow apples, golden delicious, for example. But symbolically, they may represent the apples of the Hesperides. This is from Greek mythology. These are golden apples that could grant immortality. They are presented by Gaia to Hera as a wedding gift upon her marriage to Zeus. They are then planted in a divine garden at the westernmost point of the world. Disputed lands are at a wasteland at the westernmost point of Essos.
Interesting.
We also have the apple of discord. This is Greek mythology. A golden apple tossed by Eris, the goddess of strife, inscribed with the words "for the fairest" or "to the most beautiful." This launches a vanity field dispute that culminates into the Trojan War.
Okay, well, that sounds a lot like what's going on.
Yeah. And what George is invoking here is this idea of corrupted pacts, like with bloody hands they made their pact. It's something I've said before. The idea of honor amongst thieves is it's BS. These are not 9 guys all lining up having each other's backs. These are 9 cutthroats all ready to stab the other 8 in the back the moment the moment the opportunity suits them. They do not have one another's best interests at heart, and that's why the thing falls apart as soon as Maelys dies. And then, of course, there is the fruit from the Tree of Knowledge, which I left for you to expand on. The forbidden fruit eaten by Adam and Eve is commonly depicted as an apple, though is more likely meant to be some other kind of fruit. Go ahead and promote Eve Did Nothing Wrong.
Yeah, I've got a video called Eve Did Nothing Wrong on this channel back a few years, if you haven't seen that. And it is a breakdown of the Garden of Eden. But yeah, you can see all of these things. It's the same idea. And that's why it doesn't really matter what the fruit is. It's what it stands for. It's the food of the gods. The tree is doing the standard symbolism where it's connecting the ground and the sky. And so it is a conduit for this knowledge. and the fruit in the canopy, it's up in the sky, but man can reach and grab it and then eat it. So it makes for a very good metaphor for man reaching into the realm of divine wisdom and power and possessing it and consuming it and having it. So,
Yeah. And that is symbolized by what we saw. It's only by standing on the top of Maelys' shoulders was Aliquo able to reach and pick a choice apple representing the kingdoms that they would carve out and help one another gain.
yes. And so what is like, I'm not sure what that has to do with the pact between the first men and the children. They were creating the Night's Watch, according to my heresy. That's really what the pact was doing, is creating the Watch. So here they're creating an army, of an invading army. So it's a little bit different because the Night's Watch is a defending army.
Mm.
It's definitely, yeah, it's really tantalizing. It's obviously referring to like Weirwood stuff in some sense, but I'm just not sure what is being depicted here.
Yeah. That's why I had to throw in both the Hesperides and the Discord, because it is more of a corruption of the Hesperides, because this is happening in a wasteland with this band of cutthroats. But reality is that it seems to have a lot more in common with the Apple of Discord. And that goes to show that the way the Silver Tongue is able to persuade these guys into seeing, like, trying to palm off a wormy, rotten fruit as some prime choice.
Yeah, it's definitely, and of course there's, we mentioned Idun and her apples of immortality, but it's the same symbolism, same idea. The divine apples of the gods. You know, if you lose them, it's really bad, and it can cause discord because any people fighting over power, is the cause of a lot of discord. So that does kind of all fit together. Let's see. Let's go back over to the wasteland. So where were we?
Excellent, said Holden. And can you name the 9 who swore that oath beneath the Tree of Crowns? Tyrion might have come up with 6 or 7 if pressed. 2 had been pirate chieftains, Golden Tongue a merchant. The others had all led free companies in the disputed lands, fighting endless, inconclusive battles for the greater glory of Tyrosh, Myr, or Lys. In Westeros, only Maelys the Monstrous was well remembered. But young Griff knew them all. The pirate queen, Old Mother, the Ebon Prince, Zobar Joqua, Samaro San, who named himself the Last Valyrian, Spotted Tom the Butcher of the Maiden's Men, Sir Derek Fossaway, the Bad Apple, Rogo, the Red Jester of the Jolly Fellows, the Basilisk Corzo Zomeric, Aliquo Adaris of Tyrosh, the Golden Tongue, and Maelys Blackfyre, called the Monstrous, who claimed the Iron Throne of Westeros.
They all sound monstrous to me, said Halden. Why did Maelys have that name and not the others? He devoured his brother in their mother's womb and came forth malformed. His chest and arms were huge, and a second head grew from his neck, no bigger than a fist. They say his strength was frightful. He could uproot small trees with one hand, and when he fought for the right to lead the Golden Company, he slew his cousin's destrier with a single punch, then twisted Daemon's head until it tore right off his shoulders. And that is the picture I used for the thumbnail, by the way. It's him twisting Daemon's head. Oh, I guess it doesn't zoom in any bigger. Okay.
Yeah. Now, like, we got to put this in perspective, right? We've seen guys like the Mountain. The Mountain beheaded his warhorse with one swing of his sword. Maelys punched a warhorse to death with one punch, and then ripped his cousin's head off his shoulders with his bare hands. Imagine the strength it must take to do that.
Yeah, that is crazy. Good point. That's why I was saying, like, Maegor stabbing a horse to death at age 8 with a sword is pretty crazy. Think of an 8-year-old being able to do that.
put that baby crap to bed. This guy punched a horse to death.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's conjoined twins. George is doing a alchemical thing where it's like, oh, he's consumed his twin and now he's twice as powerful. It doesn't really work like that, but so then it says, there was another reason. What was it? Tyrion thinks to himself, you would think a superfluous head would be enough. It was rather a pity his own siblings had not taken after Maelys and his brother. If Cersei were no more than a boil on Jaime's neck, he would have been the handsome brother. Okay. No man is as monstrous as the kinslayer, said young Griff. Maelys slew his cousin, and then his only son, a boy of 4? Oh, the cousin's son. The Blackfyres owned a clutch of dragon eggs. Maelys wanted a dragon to carry him to the Iron Throne, but the eggs were old and dead. When Samaro's son made him a gift of some old Valyrian scrolls, Maelys read that king's blood could wake dragons out of stone. So he gave his son Maynard to the his own son.
Mm-hmm.
The rite failed, though. The eggs did not hatch. Oh, God.
Heart in conflict with itself, right?
He sacrificed his son?
He sacrificed his own child.
Okay, so let's talk about Summerhall for a second here. Some people think that Egg was trying to sacrifice baby Rhaegar and other Targaryen family members to hatch dragons for himself. Mm-hmm. Now, what I got down to in studying Egg and in my Summerhall video is that, if anything, he was probably trying to hatch dragons for Rhaegar by paying with his own life and perhaps the life of other people. But I think that is what he intended to do, was to hatch dragons for Rhaegar. It wasn't about the reforms. Egg was a believer in prophecy, and he thought Rhaegar was going to be the prince that was promised, and he was going to hatch dragons for Rhaegar. And so what I want to compare is Egg, someone who basically has been trying to help the small folk all of his life, versus Maelys the Monstrous. Maelys the Monstrous is the type of person to put his own child to death in a blood magic rite to hatch dragons for himself. Egg is just not the same character, and we shouldn't assume that he did the same thing. So, yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, because before, Egg was originally trying to steer the Targaryens away from incest marriages. He himself marries Betha Blackwood. Hey, Black Betty, bam, balam. And the marriage pacts that he had set up that his children all broke were all outside of the family. Now, Duncan broke his marriage pact to marry Jenny of Old Stones. Jaehaerys breaks his to marry his sister. Daeron breaks his, and so on and so forth. But later on, it is Jenny of Old Stones brings a Woods Witch, which many believe is the which we believe to be the ghost of Highheart, to the court, and she is the one who says that the prince that was promised will be born from the line of Aerys and Rhaella. So there, Egg then goes back on what he was doing before and orders Aerys and Rhaella to marry, even though they really didn't like one another. He goes back on what he's doing before and forces them into an incestuous marriage because of this prophecy that the Ghost of Highheart gives.
Yeah, so these are just very different. Egg is clearly someone who's conflicted by all this stuff. Like most of the Targaryens, he's trying to help the small folk, he's trying to fulfill prophecy, he's trying to figure out how to do all this stuff. Thank you to XGN812. I guess I should just say Christian812. Maelys with a twisted head on his neck, twisted Daemon's head about his neck. Very true. Chimera can also be one animal with two sets of DNA, with fraternal twins partially merged into one person. I'm pretty sure the Chimera the Valyrians made were something like that with dragons and men. I mean, the Chimera itself is not a specific, it's not important in Ice and Fire, the animal. It's not a real animal, it's a concept. And it does apply, absolutely, to the Valyrians creating of the dragon bond and all that stuff. The dragons and the Targaryens are both chimeras in that there is part dragon in the people, and there's part dragon lord in the dragon, if you will. Yeah. Okay, so let's see, where were we?
So the eggs did not hatch. Not for him, thought Tyrion. Not for the 9 mages, nor Baelor the Blessed, nor any of the others, till Daenerys. Tell me, Halden asked his charge, what do you believe caused the downfall of the Band of 9? A sword. Young Griff pushed a lock of bright blue hair out of his eyes. The one Barristan the Bold thrust through the heart of Maelys the Monstrous. That was the end of them. Only so far as the 7 kingdoms were concerned, Halden insisted. Another half year of hard fighting followed before the Stepstones and the disputed lands were won back, and Aliquo Adaris maintained his rule in Tyrosh for 6 years after that. Until he was poisoned by his queen, Tyrion put in. Never trust a woman, lad, especially a queen. The half-maester gave him a dark look. Let us put love aside with Sir Barristan's sword. History is a garden. We are easily distracted by the fruits and flowers, but it is the roots that matter. If Selmy had not slain Maelys, another would have claimed that honor. Westeros has never lacked for swords. He turned to Tyrion. Perhaps Yolo can answer the question.
Tyrion rocked back and forth upon his stool. The fools were doomed before they'd half begun. In Westeros, your band of 9 are called the Ninepenny Kings. The Tyroshi are selling crowns for 9 a penny, I hear, the Prince of Dragonflies is reported to have said when he heard of their pact. They were never as formidable a combination as they appeared. Pirates and sellsword captains are not the stuff of kings. They conquered the Stepstones and the disputed lands, young Griff argued. Myr and Lys paid them tribute, and they put Golden Tongue upon the throne of Tyrosh. They took Tyrosh by deceit and raped it. Golden Tongue's own kingdom, yet he proved powerless to stop his brother's kings from despoiling it and selling half its children into slavery. It is one thing to wield a sword, another to wield the scepter, Halden Halfmaester told the lad. In the long ages of the world, many a conqueror has proven that, to our sorrow. So they're sort of talking about Dany here, or George is, by way of parallel. And Halden is definitely, they're all talking about Dany and Fagon, kind of. They're just saying, like, look, you could conquer stuff, but that's different. What's interesting is that, like, this Tyroshi tyrant, he conquered Tyrosh, but Tyrosh didn't have a tradition of kings or emperors. So he's always going to seem like a foreign way of life, that's a new way of life that's being imposed. Dany, when she gets to Meereen, they tell her, you have to rule as a lady of Meereen. And she tries to do that, but she really can't because she's not from there. Dany coming home to Westeros, or Fagon coming home to Westeros, they're taking great lengths to tie themselves to past Westerosi tradition. Rhaegar's son, Rhaegar's sister. We're coming back to bringing back the good times,
Yeah. So Tyrion said, the Ninepenny Kings planted the seeds of their undoing, even as they were dividing up the world beneath their tree of crowns. The Ebon Prince urged the drawing of lots to determine who should get his kingdom first, but Golden Tongue insisted they start where they were strongest. That made good strategic sense, but meant that some of the 9 must wait years for their turn, so envy set in from the start. Half of them were treacherous by nature, and all 9 shared a fatal lack. They had no legitimacy. Kingdoms have been won by the sword, but seldom by the sword alone. A king needs the support of his lords and people. Without it, his kingdom is built on sand. None of the Ninepenny Kings had any claims to the lands they wished to rule.
Right, so it's just what I was saying. It's a ridiculous idea to think you can rule someplace by force if there's no tradition of, you know what I mean? Like, even the Targaryens, who had dragons, first people in Westeros history to do that. That's why they were able to unify it. They still adopted Westerosi customs in order to make the rules stick. And that was hard. It took decades and decades, but they adopted the Faith of the Seven with a couple modifications. They adopted a house sigil,
Yeah. It's the carrot and the stick, and these guys are all stick and no carrot. The Targaryens used to have a very big stick with dragons, but when those faltered, they had to become more carrot. That's why we have Aegon III with his bread, the bread and circuses. And that's why the Targaryens thereafter had to try and continue holding on to power either through distractions, like Daeron starting a war, Daeron the Young Dragon, through religion, like Baelor the Blessed, or trying to enact reforms. We see that with Daeron the Good, and then, of course, Egg, for his part, tries to take that a step further, but he steps too far and starts stepping on the toes of the lords.
And what was the whole point of bringing Dorne into the realm through marriage and Rhaegar marrying Elia and making alliances in general? It's to give people a stake in things.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just ruling them as subjects. You're inviting them into the power structure so they have a stake in it. It's the same thing a lot of times when rebellions are co-opted. If it's successful enough, what you get is a meeting with the people in power and a seat at the table a lot of times. So, yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, Tim.
But yeah, well, like these guys are simply trying to take things by force and hold them by force and hope that that lasts forever. But force can work and force can last a long time, but eventually you get weak, you get old, you start to slip up. I mean, you can be a dictator for decades and decades, but eventually you're going to die. And unless you plant more seeds and give out some keys to people that are willing to center around you and your family and keep these going, it's all destined to fail eventually. Time is the greatest enemy in that regard.
So what Halden is trying to impress upon Fagon here is that wanting to rule just to have power isn't a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
Exactly.
Like, if you just want to rule to have power, like, you're just a greedy pirate. So what he's saying is, like, not only do you need the support of the people, you need to be taking power so that you can bring justice and rule well and bring happiness and plenitude to your people. That is, like, the reason why you should want to rule.
Yeah. Do we want to pick up some super chats before they go?
Yes, thank you. Which kingdoms were each of the 9 pining for? Kingdoms not in Westeros. So that's another mistake.
Yeah.
They should have all had something that they gained from the first conquest that they attempted. So they were all in it. Like, don't tell any of the members, oh, in 5 years, you'll get your piece. Like, they should have all had a piece of Westeros to start with. And from there, they could have pivoted to conquering other places. But it was just a mad plan to begin with. That's the problem. Exactly.
Like, no, I gave my tinfoil about the old mother. Obviously, Aliquo, as a Tyroshi merchant, he wanted Tyrosh and he got it. Samaro-san, a Lyseni pirate, so we can probably say maybe he wants Lys. The way in the story, the tattered prince that we know of the Windblown, he wants Pentos. Zobar Joqua probably wanted the Summer Islands. The big ones are the two that I stand out to me are Spotted Tom the Butcher and Derek Fossaway. Because they are Westerosi, you would think they would be more in league with Maelys and trying to grab something in Westeros.
But they're still trying to grab something they don't really have a claim to. Like, the Fossaways don't have a claim to the entire reach, you know?
No, yeah. And that's most likely Derek Fossaway would want more than just Cider Hall and Little Barrel. He would probably want the entire reach. Yeah, exactly. And Spotted Tom would probably want all of wherever he came from.
Yeah, we don't know, Christian, and the main point is that they didn't have a stake in Westeros. That's the main point. So
the other big thing is that, Maelys definitely had the most to gain by taking the Iron Throne. His was absolutely the biggest endeavor, which means he is also the one who would have had to be making the most promises and giving the most handouts for them to. Because
theoretically, if they had succeeded in taking the Iron Throne, they now are bringing all the High Lords of Westeros under their control. And from there, they can marshal bigger armies to go and take other places. So that, you know, you could argue maybe they should have captured a bigger power base before attacking Westeros. But again, the whole thing was way too friggin' ambitious.
Exactly. They should have tried to grab more free cities rather than just Tyrosh.
So, Tim, we're going to take a quick musical break here because I need to run to the restroom. And we'll be right back. Enjoy this video, this little ditty that I did.
And we're back.
I'm sorry, Tim. I was famished, and this peanut butter Cliff Bar was. I had it sitting on the desk, and it was like It was taking over 50% of my attention for the last 10 minutes. I was like, I want that Cliff Bar.
I know the struggle. I know the struggle. I feel the same with the Halloween candy that didn't get handed out. Now I'm like, oh, I got all this candy.
You didn't just binge. You didn't gorge yourself on candy corn before the stream. I'm outraged.
I tried not to, but it's calling to me. All the Kit Kat bars.
Oh, you guys, listen to how precious Tim is. He messaged me during the week a couple days ago to be like, don't forget, spring forward, set your clocks. I'm like, Tim, I just pick up my phone and it tells me what day and time it is. I do not keep track of either of those things myself. And he's like, well, I still have analog clocks. I have to reset the microwave. Like, we're all talking about converting to AI technology. Tim hasn't converted to digital yet.
The stove and the microwave were liars this morning. I had to reset them.
Obviously, daylight savings time is stupid. That goes without saying. But God bless you, Tim. Never change. So where are we here?
None of them had any claim. Maelys the Monstrous did, young Griff insisted. He was the blood of the dragon, an unbroken male descent from the first Daemon Blackfyre and King Aegon IV. Ah, but Daemon was Aegon's natural son, a bastard. The king legitimized him, though. He gave him Blackfyre. Yeah. Eustace Osgrey used the same excuse. We all know the story.
The king who bore the sword.
The lad knows his Westerosi history. The sword was not the kingdom. Just like Duncan Egg would tell you. Only the first of the Blackfyre pretenders ever came close to success. Each failed rebellion only made their claim that much weaker. In Westeros, Maelys was seen as a monster from across the sea, not a rightful king come home. A risk that Daenerys Targaryen runs as well.
Does she? Young Griff asked Holden. To some extent. Like the latter Blackfyres, she's been raised in exile and will come to Westeros a stranger. But the queen has dragons. None of the Blackfyre pretenders could ever make that claim. And if you remember in the Mystery Night, the entire plot was based on the idea that John the Fiddler had a dream and they were going to hatch a dragon at White Walls. And once they did that, that was going to rally people to their side. It wasn't even that the newborn dragon was going to then burn down the Seven Kingdoms like, 150-year-old Nana Vagar. But the fact that you talk about symbolism, the Blackfyre sword is a huge symbol of legitimacy. The dragon is 10 times the symbol. So if they hatch a dragon's egg and they're the only people that have a dragon, then they are the legitimate Targaryens. And so when they didn't have the sword and there's no dragon egg, the whole thing fell apart and everyone laughed at, the brown dragon riding out by himself.
Mm-hmm. That's why these symbols of legitimacy are so important, especially if Aegon is a Blackfyre, which I think after this chapter, the fact that they're talking about Maelys and talking about we all focus on the fruits and the flowers, but what's important is the roots. It's like, again, I think George scrapped this chapter for a reason. It just definitely gave away. If there's any further evidence needed that Aegon is a Blackfyre, it's like, here it is. And then we close out on this. And the Dragon Queen is beautiful, whilst Maelys was malformed and hideous, added the dwarf. Men love beauty and hate ugliness, my lord. He grinned and pinched young Griff on the cheek. So best take care of this pretty face of yours and see that no one cuts your nose off.
That's cute. That's pretty funny. The fact that Jaehaerys thinks Maelys' campaign is going to end in Essos means they'll underestimate Daenerys, which is good for her. Well, we've already seen that plot arc with Fagon. Fagon is so badly underestimated that they barely know he's there, and he's already like conquering Storm's End. So
Mm.
we'll see. We'll see. I don't think Dany's going to be underestimated because she's going to have just destroyed Volantis on the way to King's Landing. And so people are definitely going to hear about her. People are already hearing about her. So I do not think. I think that repeat is with Fagon, not Dany.
Yeah.
So let's talk number symbolism real quick, just because we keep talking 9 and 8 and 7 and 7.5. This is mythical astronomy, Tim. The 7 wanderers are the 5 planets visible from Earth and the sun and the moon. They are the heavenly lights that do not move with the other stars, hence they are wandering stars. Now, in the past, don't know if you've heard about this, but there used to be 2 moons, Tim. And if we had 2 moon system, that would make 8 wanderers. Mm-hmm. And when the comet comes, which is also called a wanderer from far places, then we briefly have 9 wanderers. But when that happens, we get, what do we get? An invasion of moon meteors. The 9th hits the 8th, we're left with 7, and there's a meteor shower. So we've seen this symbolism repeat a bunch of times. I think that's why there's 9 here. But when Maelys dies, it all falls apart. Mm-hmm. And then a minute ago, they talked about Tyrion joining as the 8th, and he's like 7.5 because Tyrion is wounded. But that would make him like that moon that got damaged, basically. So he's like a moon that got his face sliced off. There's just some cool stuff there. I see it. It's all over the books. So I do think it's one of those things where at times I've been like, maybe I'm going too far with that, but I really think he keeps doing it. The best example might be when they tried to make the drowned god the 8th member of the faith.
Yeah.
Like that's the moon. The 8th wanderer is the 2nd moon that got knocked out of the sky and drowned. That's literally a drowned god. It's a moon goddess that was drowned in the ocean in some places. And so we have this drowned god. It's like, oh, maybe this is the 8th wanderer because all the gods of the 7 are associated with the 7 wanderers. So it's like, oh, maybe there was an 8th wanderer, but it's drowned. So that's it. That's the whole story. And who drowned it? The 9th wanderer, the comet. That's who did it. So, okay, let's go back to your notes. And let's talk about what we just read.
So we went down, we got through the golden apples. The next one would be the piece of the peach garden.
Okay.
So another symbolic thing about them, about this pact made, is that it is a reference to another reference to Romance of the Three Kingdoms. This is a corrupted version of the Peach Garden Oath. So I've talked about Romance of the Three Kingdoms before because George has modeled his current Yi Ti situation in the World of Ice and Fire off of this. The whole thing with the blue, the Azor Emperor, the Orange Emperor, and the Yellow Sorcerer in Carcosa.
Okay.
George knows Three Kingdoms. In fact, he even says on the Nada blog, just like with the Call of Cthulhu RPG, he was obsessively played the 1985 Commodore video game for it back in the 80s. He was obsessed with this story and the video game surrounding it.
But this is a different world, man. I don't even know if there's like 20-year-olds watching this stream even know what the hell you're really talking about here when you talk about an RPG on a Commodore.
But it's straight from the author's mouth. He says, I obsessively played the game. So he knows. The point is like, whatever, if anyone ever were to say like, Tim, aren't you reaching with this? I'm like, no. He knows.
Well, it's a perfect place to draw inspiration from, really, because it's so obscure.
But in the original story, the Peach Garden Oath is a fraternal pact between our main characters, Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei. They declare themselves as sworn brothers. Their goal is protecting the Han Empire from the Yellow Turban rebels. This is a corruption of that. The Band of Nine shake on their pact with bloody hands after killing and burying a potential member under the tree. So, unlike the loyal, chivalrous, and well-intentioned heroes of romance, the Band of Nine remain a group of cutthroats, pirates, mercenaries, merchants, and petty lords. And then that's when I bring in the whole honor among thieves. It's BS. There is no honor among thieves. These are not the chivalrous warriors of the romance. These are, these are 9 guys ready to stab one another in the back.
It's true, Tim. If you're going to do crime, you should do it with people that you already trust, as opposed to like just finding random thieves and partnering with them. That's not going to work. You want to go into crime. That's why they call it a crime family. You go into crime with your family. You already trust each other. So that's yeah.
And that's why Tyrion says in the draft we read, doom from the start, envy set in, some would have to wait years. Of course, who's the only one to actually get what he wanted? The Silver Tongue. Like, you see all of this.
Pretty cool. Yeah, that makes sense as an inspiration. Because this is just, it's a pretty small little plot point. It's just like it's a different kind of Blackfyre invasion, because it's like, why do you need 6 of the same ones? So this one is, yeah. Now the dragon eggs, yeah, this is interesting. Let's talk about this. So they own some eggs, but they're old and dead. And at the time of Dunk and Egg, there are still plenty of eggs around. Egg's got them. All his brothers have one. They're still putting them in the cradles, hoping they'll hatch, and they're not. But they have them. So it's not at all weird that the Blackfyres would have dragon's eggs.
Yeah. Egg makes mention that him and his brothers all have dragon eggs. He says, like, wouldn't it be grand if mine hatched? And Dunk is like, I don't know, would it? Is that really? Yeah, maybe. But, it seems like the Blackfyres had their own clutch of eggs. In the Sworn Sword, we're told that Eustace Osgrave makes mention of a guy named Quicksilver. When he's doing his whole so many ifs, so many buts, he mentions if Quicksilver hadn't been caught with the stolen dragon eggs. So that might be a plot point that George might want to revisit. Maybe he'll edit that, and Quicksilver did secure a clutch. The other big thing is that since Illyrio seems to be coming into possession of, he's the one who gives Dany the dragon eggs, and he's also most likely harboring the sword Blackfyre. Is this clutch of eggs that Maelys tried to hatch, are these the same eggs that would eventually be Dany's? Did they eventually find their way to Illyrio?
So given that he was writing this like so long ago,
this is 2004.
This is probably his first idea for the origin of dragon's eggs. Later, he went with the whole Alyssa Farman story. So much like Aerion was replaced with the Blackfyres, I would guess that this was him potentially sketching out a backstory for Dany's eggs, and then he cut this and thought of something probably a little better, I think. Yeah.
So we got Maelys the Kinslayer absorbs his twin brother in the womb, and yes, this is a real life phenomenon that can happen. Vanishing twin, parasitic twin, fetus papyrus, if you want the scientific name. Another thing that dawned on me is George might also be making reference to the urban legend of Edward Mordrake. Edward Mordrake was a man who had, according to in the myth, Edward had a second face growing on the back of his head. And according to him, he begged doctors to remove it because at night it would whisper evil things that they say that they only speak of in hell, were his words.
That's disturbing. Yeah.
When the face would sneer when Edward was happy, the face would smile when Edward was sad, and eventually Edward secludes himself in his room and takes his own life. But yeah, American
Tyrion has the dream.
I'm sorry?
Tyrion has the dream of having 2 heads, which is like kind of after he's just been thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah, he thinks of himself having like a little vestigial head, and it's crying tears. I think it was crying tears of blood.
Summer, your daughter is magic. I can confirm that for you.
Yeah. So Edward Mordrake says, the face would tell him to do horrible things, and here we have Maelys, who gives up his own son. So George might want to play with the idea of maybe this vestigial head is whispering things to Maelys if we ever get Fire and Blood Part 2 and he wants to dive more into Maelys' character. The legend of Edward Mordrake is prime territory for him to play with that vestigial head.
That's cool. And I guess it's not impossible that these eggs could still show up, and just to make Fagon like, more credible, or maybe George will set up a dragon bomb situation with them. There are different things that can happen with eggs other than just hatching. Maybe Fagon tries to hatch some eggs in King's Landing. Since Danny did it, maybe he believes that he can do it. Tim, I have pointed out that the Syvas game seems to foreshadow Fagon getting eaten by a dragon. Tyrion basically does that in the game.
Yeah.
And so I've always thought, well, maybe he'll try to ride one of Danny's dragons and get eaten. That's probably how that will happen. But what if he tried to hatch dragons? Thinking that like Danny did it, so can I, and then blew himself up. That's the same thing as getting eaten by a dragon as well.
Yeah, and that could be what is it? The stone
beast, Shadow Tower. Yeah,
that possible. That's most likely John Connington, because he's a griffin with grayscale right now.
And breathing shadow fire is Blackfyre. He's breathing the Blackfyre rebellion back onto the land.
Yeah.
But that is the language of dragon hatching, used to describe Jon Con and Fagon's invasion. So obviously he is like a dragon hatching because he's just a dragon person. Yeah. But yeah, that could be interesting.
But the big thing is that when Fagon does eventually surface in King's Landing, he's more than likely going to have all of these heirs of legitimacy. Possibly the Sword Blackfyre. I've talked about the Martells possibly having the Conqueror's Crown because it was lost in Dorne after the Young Dragon War. Maybe a clutch of dragon eggs that are still around. Maybe the Pyromancer's one or something. Of course, Fagon's probably going to have his whole group of fakes, bastards, and pretenders like Orain Waters, Darkstar, and possibly Edric Storm.
Right, and those are also symbols of legitimacy as well. But to go back to the dragon egg thing, at this point we basically know that every Targaryen has dragon dreams. Like Aemon, Maester Aemon says all of his brothers had them, and basically anytime we learn more about any Targaryen character, it turns out they have dragon dreams. So really we're just talking about how many and how much. Like people like Helena on the show, she's having more prophetic dreams. And it certainly seems like maybe some people are listening to them more or paying attention to them more. But we shouldn't wonder that Fagon either has had them or will have them. And the Blackfyres have always had dragon dreams as well. That's part of the story. So yes, Fagon, absolutely, he is arrogant enough to think if Danny hatched him, so can I. And if he has a dream about it, man, I could really see that happening. That would be interesting. Because that would be a way to slay the lie. The Mummer's dragon lie is slain by like not being able to hatch them.
Yeah, and we know from the Mystery Knight that Blackfyres do have dragon dreams too. Daemon Blackfyre II had them. It's implied here. Well, Maelys might have had them. It seems more like this, but those scrolls that Samaro San presents him with become the absolute tipping point where he kind of feels like, oh, maybe my dreams can become reality.
I think it is the black dragon that eats Fagon in the Syvas game. The white dragon is the one that Tyrion picks up covered in blood in Meereen. But I believe it is the black dragon. I think Tyrion is black when he defeats Fagon. So if he's getting eaten, he wouldn't try to.
It's also the black dragon that Doran Martell is holding in his gouty fingers when he finally tells Arya and Martell his real plans.
Right, he's doing it intentionally. He's saying the black dragon, the Blackfyres. Yeah, he's meaning to do that. But I believe in the scene with Tyrion and Fagon, Tyrion is black. So it could be Drogon will kill him. If he tries to ride Drogon, he's in for a rude awakening, surely.
Yeah.
If Drogon kills him, that could also be like a execution type thing, potentially after he does something bad enough for Dany to do that. That would be very dark for Dany if she feeds him to the dragon. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Trying to hatch a dragon, though, that could fit the same symbolism and foreshadowing.
Yeah. I definitely see a reverse Rhaenyra Aegon the second thing going on. Going all the way back years ago, before I even did YouTube, when I was just writing essays, one of them was Fagon, a parallel King, Princes, and Pretenders, and I trace all of the connections that Aegon has to all of the other Aegons throughout history, and that is the big one there for his Aegon the Second connections.
So you think that he basically a flip of Rhaenyra and Aegon the Second, where Dany is going to feed him to the dragon?
I think that's going to happen. Yeah.
Well, that would be hella dark. It'd be very dark. That would be even darker than the Volantis thing, because she'll just be burning a bunch of slave masters and stuff, and who cares? Yeah, you should make a video about that, Tim.
Oh, Fagon. Yeah.
I've got it on my list of video ideas. Fagon will be eaten by a dragon. It's right there under Winds of Winter predictions.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, next Sunday, we're gonna do a Winds of Winter predictions iceberg stream with Cameron from Bulwark. So we are gonna rapid fire go through a whole bunch of theories and just kind of riff on them. So that'll be fun. Don't miss that. Oh, that's gonna be a big list I gotta compile. Oh, Tim, I'm tired. I'm tired, Tim. Echoes of history. So what do we got here?
So, just like the line that Holden said in the draft, history is a garden, it's the roots that matter. So, Barristan the Bold gains even more fame, slaying Maelys. And we said, this is the origins of Southern ambitions. Tywin and Kevin Lannister both fight in the War of the Ninepenny Kings. Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King, fights. Quellen Greyjoy fights in this. Stefan Baratheon, Jon Arryn, Brynden Tully, Hoster Tully, and Rickard Stark. All of these guys all fight in the War of the Ninepenny Kings. This is, as far as we know, this is the only Blackfyre rebellion that the North directly participates in. All the others were very short and ended before they could rally forces, or the North had other things going on. Hoster Tully befriends Lord Baelish of the Fingers and agrees to foster his son Peter. So this is how the Littlefingers rise in power. Peter Baelish's great-grandfather distinguished himself and was given the Fingers by Lord Tully, and then here it happens again. His father distinguishes himself in battle. I believe he did something that saved Hoster Tully or something, and Hoster Tully, gracious as he was, agrees to foster his son Peter. So we see the Baelishes kind of leapfrogging their way up into power, and it's always by standing either by if they're not making themselves renowned in war, like the great-grandfather and the father of Peter Baelish, then Peter stands out with his market trickery, the way he could make coins just appear out of nowhere, as they say. The only known Blackfyre rebellion that the North participated in. Septon Marable, the Quiet Isle, is a veteran of this war. The Broken Man speech is based off of his experiences fighting in this war.
That's cool.
And I said, this seems like Ice and Fire's World War. And I bring that up because we know that one of George's major inspirations is Tolkien, and Tolkien fought in World War I. George was a conscientious objector in Vietnam, but has said he would have fought in World War II. And the language that he uses, especially in the Broken Man speech, it's like he's weaving medieval battle tactics into the imagery of World War I. And we'll get to that. We'll see that when we do the Broken Man speech.
That's a good way of describing it.
Yeah, and just like World War I, what starts as a territorial dispute grows out of control, begins to pull in all major powers.
We kind of read that. Aegon didn't think it was going to, at least he was hoping. He was like, well, let's not deal with it and see if it falls apart at least. I mean, that's not a bad notion. It's not necessarily that he underestimated it, but he let it simmer, and instead of falling apart, it boiled. And so then, like we said, Tyrosh is overwhelmed. Stepstones are taken. and major comparisons. Some damned foolish thing in the Balkans from a splendid little war to the war to end all wars.
Both statements are wrong. That is, yeah, World War One. That is
So
Otto
first they
von.
called it a splendid little war, like, oh, it'll be fun. It's like, nope.
Home by Christmas was what they said. Home by
Right. It is
Christmas.
similar with Iraq. First Iraq war, we'll do it quick, and it never happens that way. And then we've got, or at least the initial part happened quick, but then you broke it, you bought it. And then of course the war to end all wars, it was not. There was another world war, only a few decades later.
And we are still feeling the ramifications of the First World War because the thing about World War One is it is a new technological war, but fought from old imperial attitudes. These are kings and monarchs fighting with machine guns, which had never been done before. And in the same way, the War of the Ninepenny Kings, we said Jaehaerys is a guy leading the charge from his sickbed. He's not directly, as much as he wanted to be, he's not directly involved in this. So again, this is the idea of men in high offices, bureaucrats and monarchs sending young men out to die out into the meat grinder. And that's exactly what we get. That's the exact imagery we get when Septon Marable does his broken man speech. This war employs language that blends medieval style warfare with modern themes highly reminiscent of World War One. Disease, shell shock, atrocity, mass slaughter, no man's land, all of those things come up in the broken man speech.
Yeah, it really is. One of the things that's interesting about military history and people that like war games and war documentaries and all the, and I mean like video games based on war, is that every era has different military weaponry, and every era of weaponry creates completely different battle tactics. And tactics are kind of the interesting thing about war. Now, the horrible side of that same dynamic is that the pressure it puts on human beings fighting the wars changes. So, of course, World War I was famous for trench warfare, where they've just figured out how to make all these chemicals. And so they're lobbing crazy stuff that's now, well illegal. Not that it's never used, but it's war crime to use gases and things like this. But back then they had just found them, and so they're throwing them at each other. Similarly with World War II, that was the first time they were able to really drop bombs from planes effectively, if I'm not mistaken. And so you see these cities getting carpet bombed. That's never been a thing before. And now we've got drones and stuff. So every evolution of war technology changes the tactics, but it also changes the horror that people are subjected to. So Vietnam, which George would be thinking about a lot, they're dealing with all the napalm and Agent Orange, specifically, that they're dropping. The whole point of Agent Orange was like to kill the jungle foliage that the northern Vietnamese were hiding in. But stuff that kills jungle foliage also has effect on human beings. We found out later, or maybe we knew all the time, I don't know. But only it's not just the Vietnamese that suffered from that. Obviously, the American troops suffered side effects too. So it's like the barbarity of war on full display. They're just throwing this stuff on the battlefield. And you start to see with the broken man speech how it's like it stops being about the sides. And it just it becomes about people with their guts hanging out, essentially.
Yeah, and because the Vietnam vets, again, George being a conscientious objector, the broken man speech also heavily employs them too. You got a lot of guys coming back, like you said, exposed to Agent Orange. A lot of guys come back with PTSD. They saw their friends killed in front of them. They come back thinking that they fought a useless war. They got nothing out of it. Like Septon Marable says, I didn't meet no king and I didn't make a penny. Guys come back with, drug heroin was plentiful. They come back addicted. Some of them start using the things they learned to get by. They start committing crimes like the Broken Men. There are guys, I've talked about a lot of mercenary companies, real world mercenary companies are guys who come back from the war, but they're not there. They come back, but they're not here. The war never leaves them. That's why you see a huge a lot of mercenary bands come out in the 50s and 60s. A lot of them are World War II vets, and then they grow even further in the 70s and 80s with Vietnam vets. The Cold War was just perfect breeding grounds for that kind of stuff, just like the disputed lands here in George's world are this. So you see George invoking like all these things and just taking them and putting them like, what if this, but in medieval times? What if this, but in a time where war crimes weren't, the idea of war crimes never even existed? That's how we get the broken man.
Well, I appreciate you, Tim, bringing this to us, and I appreciate the chat engaging on the topic here. Obviously, war is a big theme in Ice and Fire, and you can tell by the way that George writes about war what he's interested in. Less so the tactics and more the human cost. We don't like a lot of wars. We only get little glimpses of Whispering in the Wood. Cat is sitting on a ridge, and we know a little bit about the strategy, but we're getting her very limited view where most of it's going on in the darkness, and she's waiting to see what happens. Tyrion gets knocked out on the Battle of the Red Fork, and we only see his compartmentalized little portion of the war. Robb fights a bunch of wars. We hear about the aftermath mostly. So George is the biggest one we get is like when Jon is fighting the wildlings at Castle Black. Like we get a lot of detail there, but mostly George is interested in the Harding conflict. He's interested in Jon having to go over and talk to Mance after the battle. Who's where Jon's essentially a prisoner of, the Night's Thorn and the rest of the Night's Watchmen who think he's a traitor, and they're making him negotiate with Mance, who he's kind of friends with, but he's supposed to kill him. That's the shit that George likes, okay? So that's how he's using war. Like this broken man speech is everything. This is the whole point. So I'm glad that you included this in the draft here, in the notes.
So,
because this is a Song of Ice and Fire. This is definitely a Feast for Crows in a nutshell. But I would argue this is basically George's commentary on. I mean, it's not even an argument. It is. So.
And it's why, like, so I mentioned Tolkien. Tolkien was a World War I veteran, and it's why Lord of the Rings, like, I would say the dominating theme of Lord of the Rings is hope. It's hope for the future and the goodness of man, as well as the goodness that can be present in the other races. And it's why when it came time for Tolkien to write the New Shadow, he was just kind of like, "No, I don't want to do it. I made my story. I don't like the idea of undoing everything and everything going to hell again. I lived through that in real life. I don't need to do that in my story." And there are the criticisms of A Song of Ice and Fire is like, oh, it's all morally gray. There is no heroes. And it's like, no, George definitely is going even further into the trenches, I would say, than Tolkien wanted to, because Tolkien literally went into the trenches. But no, there is hope. There is hope and a guiding light and a hope for the goodness of people, and that ultimately that will prevail. And that is why we think that like the ultimate end can't be just a big battle and a war being won. It needs to be something like reconciliation.
Yeah, I stumbled onto that idea 4 or 5 years ago, that reconciliation was perhaps the biggest theme of the story, if not, it's definitely one of the biggest themes. And that's where you get to when you're like, well, if it's not just beating the others, what do we have to do? It's like, yeah, you get to reconciliation pretty quick. You see that the wildlings are a stand-in for this concept. And then you get into the Weirwood Net stuff, and you're like, oh, this is all stuff that's been split apart. It needs to be reconciled. And then you have Blackwoods and Brackens and Starks and Karstarks and. So Tim, we'll just basically read about a page each and take turns. It looks like 4 or 5 screen pages worth of material here. So it starts off by saying Podrick is a broken man and outlaw. Brienne says, more or less. And Septon Maribald's like, well, that might be a little bit of a stingy answer. Might be glossing over a couple things here. And so he begins.
So more or less than more. There are many sorts of outlaws, just as there are many sorts of birds. A sandpiper and a sea eagle both have wings, but they are not the same. The singers love to sing of good men forced to go outside the law to fight some wicked lord, but most outlaws are more like this ravening hound than they are like the lightning lord. They are evil men, driven by greed, soured by malice, despising the gods and caring only for themselves. broken men are more deserving of our pity, though they may be just as dangerous. And that right there, evil men driven by greed, scoured by malice, that pretty much is the Band of Nine. Like, again, we talk about who is leading this war effort on the opposing side: pirates and mercenary captains.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We hit that exactly. They have no reason to want to rule other than greed and lust for power. So these are evil men.
Yeah. Some of them may have claims, like Maelys. Maelys has a claim, very weak claim. Maybe some of the others have claims, like the Ebon Prince, but it seems like most likely, like, no, these guys were very far. These guys were very far down, the path of succession. Their kingdoms are made of sand, and then of course Aliquo has no nobility. He's a merchant. He's just a guy.
And you could say, oh well, maybe they were coming to liberate Westeros from the rule of these crazy Targaryens like Egg, who just burned down Summerhall trying to hatch dragons. And it's like, oh no, Maelys sacrificed his 4-year-old son to try to hatch dragons too. So
yeah, and ripped his cousin's head off.
I wonder if, oh wait a minute, if Maelys did that before Summerhall, Egg might have heard about that. And I wonder if that affected what he did at Summerhall.
So let's see. Yeah, because so these guys, the Tree of Crowns thing happens in 258. Summerhall happens in 259, and by 260 it is all out war. So depends on how George wants to line up the timeline there.
It's just interesting that Maelys is trying to hatch dragon eggs with blood magic probably only a couple years before Summerhall.
Yeah. But the key difference there is, as you said, like, Egg was the sacrifice was most likely supposed to be himself, and things got out of control. Whereas it's sacrificing oneself versus sacrificing others. That's another big, like, Euron, Dany, Jon parallel of Euron sacrificing others, whereas Jon ultimately, he himself is the sacrifice.
You know what? Okay, so look, in the Mystery Knight, John the Fiddler's dream about a dragon waking apparently refers to Egg casting off his disguise and owning up to being Aegon Targaryen, because he's such a significant Targaryen that his coming into his own is worth a dragon dream. Think about this. King Egg, he tried to hatch dragons at Summerhall. We know that. I think he tried to hatch them for Rhaegar. It's we know that he had dragon dreams. Aemon says that. He says the dragon dreams killed all my brothers. So he's blaming Summerhall on dragon dreams, essentially. And of course he had a dream about it if he tried to hatch the eggs. So the dragon dream that Egg had was probably about Rhaegar, who was born at Summerhall. That's why Egg thought that Summerhall at that time was going to be the place to hatch dragons. He was having a dream about a dragon egg hatching. It was Rhaegar's birth, because Rhaegar is the father of the prince that was promised, and he's the one who figured out prophecy and married Lyanna and made the prince that was promised. He had to do some weird stuff to do that, controversial stuff. Don't know if you've heard. So it's likely that Maelys the Monstrous was also dreaming of Rhaegar's birth, Tim. And that's probably why he thought he could hatch a dragon. He probably saw the same thing that Egg was seeing, because they're both doing it at the same time. They're both foreseeing Rhaegar's birth, potentially. There's a new theory for you.
Yeah. That's why I always, when it comes to prophecy, I always come back to the Marwyn line, because it's like, yeah, prophecy can be this great thing, but the way that people interpret it and the way they think, like, oh, well, in order to make this happen, I need to do step A, then step B, then step C. That is where everyone falters. And it's like, yeah, you're seeing it, but your guiding principles seem to be wrong. And the steps you think that you need to take that's not it. You completely misread this. You misread the situation, or at least you misread how to get there. The end was in sight and you took the wrong road.
Yeah. That's just so interesting. Who or what is sending the dragon dreams? That would be the dragon eggs themselves, according to me. Check out Dreams Come from Dragons, Laurie Scott. But yeah, either dragon's eggs or dragons. We know that Daenys the Dreamer claimed Balerion the Black Dread when Balerion was only a few years old and Daenys was a teenager. And the night after she claimed him, she dreamt of the doom. So that really implies that it had something to do with her claiming Balerion. But then if you think back to Dany in A Game of Thrones, she dreams of Drogon twice before Drogon hatches. It is a black dragon that Dany thinks about as her child. It is definitely Drogon. But Drogon is not hatched yet. So this tells you that the dragon spirit in the egg can send a dragon dream to a Targaryen like Dany. And this also makes sense of the idea of putting the eggs in the cradles. That Rhaena Targaryen, rider of Dreamfire, she named her dragon Dreamfire because she had so many dragon dreams, okay? She's the one who figured out, we'll put the eggs in the cradle with the kids, because then what's going to happen? The same thing as Dany and Drogon. The egg is going to send dreams to the kid. Even before it hatches, the bond is going to start happening. So that all to me makes a ton of sense, and thus dreams come from dragons. So where are these dreams coming when there are no dragons? They're coming from the eggs, because the eggs want to get born. That's the agenda. You know, they want Dany to hatch them and bring the dragons back into the world so they can do their thing. That's the goal. Like, you can go pretty far with this dragon agenda. Why did Balerion give Dany that dream? You know, maybe he's just a focal point for seeing the future, but maybe Balerion is like, you know, saying, hey, we need to get out of here to preserve our line so we can do Prince That Was Promised and stuff in, 300 years, 400 years.
Yeah. There's also a lot of unwritten history here, too, that George has a lot of potential to play with. Like, we know that Aegon IV gave Daemon Blackfyre the sword Blackfyre. We know that he sold offices for sex. Who's to say that he didn't give all of the great bastards a dragon egg of their own? And so when Bittersteel crosses the narrow sea, he had, who's to say Bittersteel didn't have one? He sure as hell didn't get a sword, because those went to Daemon and Bloodraven. So, Bittersteel and his I was the king's bastard and all I got was this lousy egg shirt. Like, maybe he had his own.
Well, yeah, yes, to answer the question, Summer, yes, Dany is special and she's born at the right time. She's Azor Ahai Reborn. The Red Comet comes back. This is the time when the White Walkers are stirring. It's the time when we need Azor Ahai Reborn. So yes, she is special. It seems like all these things are a factor in her being able to wake the dragons. I don't think Egg could have woken dragons at Summerhall. I don't think there's anything he could have done that could have made that work. The comet wasn't there. It wasn't time. Simple as that. He had basically everything else right, I think, except for that. We definitely killed enough Blood of the Dragon people. There was enough sacrifice. There was enough. The fire was hot enough. It was hotter than Drogo's pyre. A bunch of wildfire? Yes, that was hotter than Drogo's pyre. Absolutely, it was. So it wasn't that. It was the comet and the timing. And that's, Tim, you could tell us. It's that quote from Lovecraft about, they could move between worlds but only when the stars were aligned and stuff like that. That sentence burns in your mind, and we know George has read it many times.
Yeah. Does that mean Fagon could have two eggs, both black? Possibly. Like, that's it. If in this draft, where did that clutch? If we're looking for where did this clutch of dragon eggs that Maelys had in this draft come from, then yeah, if Aegon IV was giving dragon eggs to all of his bastards, then yeah, possibly the clutches eggs that belong to the original Daemon Blackfyre and Bittersteel that they were able to carry over along with the sword. Again, like it's a huge unwritten history. George has so many avenues to take when it comes to fleshing this out. We're picking what little bits of meat off of the skeleton we have here, coming to these conclusions.
Yeah, and someone else asked about John's dreams, the recurring crypt stream. I have a video called John's Dragon Dream, and I do think that his dream that he's never finished, where he's got to go deeper into the crypts of Winterfell, it's not the Kings of Winter that he's afraid of. There's something darker and deeper in there. He's only walking by the Kings of Winter. He's going to the lowest level. We don't know what's down there. It's a dragon's egg, most likely from Jacaerys visiting Winterfell when they signed the Pact of Ice and Fire, which was the idea of marrying a Stark to a Targaryen. That pact wasn't fulfilled until Rhaegar and Lyanna got married and sired Jon. So, Jon being the fulfillment of that pact, there's several different rumors about Jacaerys, his dragon Vermax, having laid eggs in the Winterfell crypts. I'm not sure that he laid eggs. It could have been that Jacaerys brought an egg as a down payment on the pact to the Starks. But either way, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. But like I said, can I say that Aegon the Unworthy gave all of his bastards dragon eggs definitively? No, I cannot say that. But is it out of character for him to do so? Absolutely not. He gave Lord Butterwell a dragon egg after sleeping with all 3 of his daughters, and that is that dragon egg is the big MacGuffin at the center of the Mystery Night. So him doling out dragon eggs, easy peasy lemon squeezy to anyone and everyone, it's perfectly in character for him.
Christian, the reason why nobody thinks about Silverwing, who did stop by Winterfell, obviously, is because there's no rumors about Silverwing laying eggs, and there's no Jon clues in their story. When you look at Jacaerys is a Targaryen bastard who parallels Jon exactly. He's a dark-haired Targaryen bastard who means well. Then he goes up there, and they sign the Pact of Ice and Fire, and he sleeps with Sarah Snow, who's a Stark bastard. So, there's just so many echoes of Rhaegar and Lyanna and Jon, and then they sign something called the Pact of Ice and Fire, which, again, isn't fulfilled until Rhaegar and Lyanna have Jon. So, and then the clues are around Vermax and Jacaerys. Yeah, I don't vape, and don't give me health advice on my stream. Thank you. I literally don't vape. I never do. I hate vaping. Jesus, dude. The clues all support Vermax and Jacaerys. And we don't know, again, it could have been that Jacaerys brought an egg and there wasn't one laid. But if Vermax wants to get into the crypts and lay an egg, he can, because we know that the crypts extend in a cave system, and those caves are all through the Wolf's Wood. So basically, Vermax would have been chilling in the Wolf's Wood, found a cave, and ended up down in the crypts to lay an egg.
Yeah.
But it's also the place where you might put it. Like if you're the Starks, you're receiving the egg as an official down payment for a child that's not born yet. You might go put it down in the crypts and just keep it safe down there. And then the child's never born and it just stays down there. And it's sending Jon dreams. And when he completes the dream, what he will see is a dragon, very like Dany saw Drogon. It'll be some sort of dream dragon. I don't even know that those eggs need to hatch. The point could simply be, much as it is with the Blackfyres and what we're talking about, symbols of legitimacy. A dragon's egg in the crypts could be a kind of proof of who Jon is, and it could prove it to Jon, if nothing else, because he'll dream and see the dragon in his dream and know what he is. You know what I mean? Like, this could be a place where he gets information. So, what happened to the eggs from Summerhall? They exploded.
Yeah, I'm going with Dragon Bomb theory on that one.
Yeah, it's solid. So let's get back to this broken man speech. Tim, where were you? Almost all are common born.
Yeah, that's where we left off. Almost all are common born, simple folk who had never been more than a mile from the house where they were born until the day some lord came round to take them off to war. And we see that exact thing in the Sworn Sword when Dunk and Brown Bennis are rounding up the guys around Cold Moat, and all they got are like sharpened sticks. Poorly shod and poorly clad, they march away beneath his banners, ofttimes with no better arms than a sickle or a sharpened hoe or a maul they made themselves by lashing a stone to a stick with strips of hide. Brothers march with brothers, sons with fathers, friends with friends. They've heard the songs and stories, so they go off with eager hearts, dreaming of the wonders that they will see, of the wealth and glory they will win. War seems a fine adventure, the greatest most of them will ever know. Again, splendid little war.
Then they get a taste of battle, Tim. For some, that one taste is enough to break them. Others go on for years until they lose count of all the battles they have fought in. But even a man who has survived 100 fights can break in his 101st. Brothers watch their brothers die. Fathers lose their sons. Friends see their friends trying to hold their entrails in after they've been gutted by an axe. They see the lord who led them there cut down, and some other lord shouts that they're his now. They take a wound, and when that's still half healed, they take another. There's never enough to eat. Their shoes are falling to pieces from the marching. Their clothes are torn and rotting, and half of them are fouling their breeches from drinking bad water. If they want new boots or a warmer cloak, or maybe a rusted horn half-helm, they need to take them from some corpse. Before long, they are stealing from the living too, from the small folk whose lands they're fighting in, men very like the men they used to be. They slaughter their sheep and steal their chickens, and from there it's just a short step to carrying off their daughters too. And one day they look around and realize all their friends and kin are gone, that they are fighting beside strangers beneath a banner that they hardly recognize. They don't know where they are or how to get back home, and the Lord they're fighting for does not know their names. Yet here he comes, shouting for them to form up, to make a line with their spears and scythes and sharpened hoes, to stand their ground. And the knights come down on them, faceless men clad all in steel, and the iron thunder of their charge seems to fill the world, and the man breaks.
He turns and runs, or crawls off afterward over the corpses of the slain, or steals away in the black of night, and he finds some place to hide. All thought of home is gone by then, and kings and lords and gods mean less to him than a haunch of spoiled meat that will let him live another day, or a skin of bad wine that might drown its fear for a few hours. The broken man lives from day to day, from meal to meal, more beast than man. Lady Brienne is not wrong. In times like these, the traveler must beware of broken men and fear them, but he should pity them as well. When Maribold was finished, a profound silence fell upon their little band. Brienne could hear the wind rustling through a clump of pussy willows and farther off the faint cry of a loon.
Is it something I said? It's quiet in here. It's like, yeah, kind of a bring down, Maribold. No, go ahead, Tim.
She could hear Dog panting softly as he loped. Oh yeah, the dog named Dog. Panting softly as he loped along beside the Septon and his donkey, tongue lolling from his mouth. The quiet stretched and stretched until finally she said, "How old were you when they marched you off to war?"
Why, no older than your boy, Maribold replied, meaning Pod, so like a teenager. Too young for such, in truth, but my brothers were all going, and I would not be left behind. William said I could be his squire, though Will was no knight, only a pot boy armed with a kitchen knife he'd stolen from the inn. He died upon the stepstones and never struck a blow. It was fever did for him and for my brother Robin. Owen died from a mace that split his head apart, and his friend John Pox was hanged for rape. The War of the Ninepenny Kings? Asked Hyle Hunt. So they called it, though I never saw a king, nor earned a penny. It was a war, though. That it was. Chilling.
Mm-hmm.
Chilling, like just when the whole speech has already got you, it's like, oh yeah, what's your story? And it's like, it's one of those.
Mm. Because here we are 40 years later, and we're still feeling the ripples of it. Here's a guy who lived through it. And so many of our high lords participated in it. Is that Tywin, Hoster Tully, the Blackfish, Quelling Greyjoy, the father of Euron and Balon and Victarion, he was there. Lots and lots of guys, and this is where the seeds of Southron ambitions are played.
You know what I also think of when I read this passage that we just read? I think of Dunk going to Lord Dondarrion in the Mystery Night, and he's like, Arlen of Pennytree fought beneath your banner. Do you remember him? And he's like,
yeah, a lot of guys fought for me. I don't know.
Yeah, he's like, prove it. And Dunk is like, dude, Arlen of Pennytree risked his entire life and fought and did all this stuff that we just read about for your cause. Can I get you to sign off on me entering the friggin' joust? Like the tiniest little favor. And he's just like, meh, whatever. A lot of people serve for me. So you see, like, it means everything to one person and nothing to the High Lord, kind of. Like, George is always showing us that dichotomy.
Exactly.
Please just sign my permission slip. Yeah, exactly. How hard is that? So this is there was a super chat. Yeah, going back to John. We cracked open the John talk. When John is dead and his spirit goes into Ghost, would Bloodraven be able to link with John and show him the truth of his heritage? Definitely. Could Bloodraven lead John past the point where John has gotten stuck? Yes. So, remember, John's Azor High dream, he's woken by a gnarled old hand grabbing his shoulder. That is most likely Bloodraven, gnarled being a tree word. There's not really, I don't know who else that would be, waking John up from a dream. It seems more like Bloodraven might be showing John, hey, you're going to need a burning red sword and you might be fighting corpses on the wall, so just want to get you used to that idea. And then it's like, oh, all of John's guilt starts leaking in and he's killing Ygritte and his brothers and he's just going crazy. And Bloodraven's like, okay, that's enough. Let's wake you up. Mm-hmm. That's sort of my reading of that. And In Deep Geek has put that together in a video really well. So shout out to him. So yeah, I definitely think that's true. And Tim, check this out. Going back to the Mystery Knight again, John the Fiddler, bastard Targaryen, disguised as John. Okay, Jon Snow,
Yeah.
Same. Okay, so his identity is, and it's a dragon dream that he has, right? And so his identity,
he dyes his hair black, and Jon's hair is black.
Oh, that's true. He also does that. Yes. So the point is, John the Fiddler's identity is revealed as a Targaryen, exposed, if you will, by Bloodraven and some little kid. So is Jon Snow's identity going to be revealed by Bloodraven and some little kid? Huh?
Most likely.
Most likely. And obviously Melisandre will play a big role in that too. That's the thing we're certain of, is that Melisandre's destiny is leading up to Jon's resurrection. And maybe more. By the way, I'll have a Melisandre's fate video coming up, not this week, but next week. I'm putting out my Maegor lecture this week, Tim. It's going to be me scolding the Maegor people in condensed form. I've only done it on a live stream, so no, Maegor did not save the dynasty people. So y'all watch that. It'll be fun. But point is, Melisandre's fate obviously tied to Jon's resurrection. What we're wondering is, could Bran and Bloodraven have a role? And I think that Melisandre seeing Bran and Bloodraven in her dream right before she sees Jon as a man and the wolf and a man again is in fact implying that Melisandre is going to have to be working with Bloodraven and Bran to do this whole Jon thing, either knowingly or unknowingly. To some level there will be overlap.
Yeah, because right now when she sees them, their faces in the flames, she thinks they're servants of the Great Other, and it's like, no, you're gonna have to put aside some of those prejudices because you need to work with these guys in order to get back. Especially if Jon gets momentarily snatched by the others and becomes a zombie Night's King for a hot minute.
Yeah, I'm not even putting a question on, did Maegor save House Targaryen? Like, no, I'm not even gonna play. I'm trying to think of an entertaining way to do it. I might do it like, here's how to win an argument about this with somebody. Anyway. I forgot that, I just didn't know that Maelys sacrificed his own kid. Not even Maegor. I mean, Maegor tortured the hell out of his wives and stuff. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody else in the story that sacrifices their own child? Like, obviously, Shireen sacrifices coming, and Stannis, I don't think he'll be the one calling all the shots on it, but he'll still be culpable in a way. So I guess Selyse will be the one directly sacrificing her own child.
Yeah. I mean, Azor Ahai sacrifices his wife, and also possibly his sister if it turns out that that's Bloodstone Emperor and it was a sister wife.
Euron
Sacrifice.
wants to do it. Yep. He's got
Euron had.
Clea pregnant, and then he's going to use her for blood magic. So, yep.
Yeah, Euron. I said Euron. Euron has no feeling towards his kids. I called it. He said they're water balloons filled with king's blood. He has no problem sacrificing his sons and his brothers.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that Baby Rhaego's sacrifice paid for the dragons, but the thing is, Dany didn't intend to sacrifice him to wake the dragons. That's not what she did. So that's like Maelys is like, this is with Maelys, it's like Abraham and Isaac. It's like,
Exactly.
put your son on the altar and set it on fire. Okay, Lord, whatever you say.
Isaac, what the hell was that?
And God was like, psych, just checking your loyalty. I've been like, bro.
Yeah.
Think of another way to do that, perhaps. Anyway, let's not.
Like I said, I feel there's a reason that George scrapped this chapter and went another direction with Tyrion and Fagon, because I do feel like this chapter gave away. And if George were to put this chapter, even if it had to wait till Dance, written the way it was, I do think it's another king and sword situation. It gives way too much away of the Fagon plot, because if he's not a Blackfyre, then why are we talking about Maelys and the Ninepenny Kings and the roots of history?
Yeah, and it's just you can see that Halden is literally talking to him as if he's going to be the next Targaryen conqueror, and he's talking about like how to do it and how not to do it. So it's just like the whole conversation doesn't even make sense unless Fagon is a Blackfyre getting ready to conquer Westeros.
Yeah, because it's like, how are you going to conquer Westeros? You have to do the opposite of what all the other Blackfyres did. You can't only be a conqueror. You need to know when to use the carrot and when to use the stick. All the other Blackfyres only ever use the stick.
Well, if you look at the whole point of this thing is Halden is trying to ask this question, why did they fail? And when George has the characters get down to it, it comes down to their motive and their legitimacy. Their motive was greed. They were evil men just trying to gain power, and they didn't really have any legitimate right to rule. They weren't looking out for the best interests of their people, and so they didn't have any support amongst their commoners. So it was doomed from the beginning. So we're supposed to take all those things and apply them to Dany and Fagon in A Dance with Dragons and think about how they measure up according to all those things. Varys and Illyrio have essentially been trying to throw Westeros into chaos, first by having a Dothraki invasion that Fagon would have come along to clean up, and then next by empowering Cersei's misrule so that Fagon could come and clean that up. The whole point is to make Westeros hungry for a new leader. And the Ninepenny Kings didn't do that. Like, the Targaryens were pretty secure on the dynasty. They were secure on the throne. There wasn't like some cry for a change in leadership. So like they're trying to engineer Varys and Illyrio. They're trying to engineer the need for Fagon because they understand that is a way to generate automatic support for Fagon, is because he's going to come in and claim to be a restoration of old traditions. He's going to claim to be looking out for the best interests of the people, much like the Tyrells, whom he may be allied with. He will be, feeding people, cheering crowds, let the good times roll, everything is okay now. That's what he's going to try to use to solidify his rule. So you can see that all the lessons George is setting up in this chapter are going to be heavy parts of Fagon's plot.
Mm-hmm. And if we've been there, we said, and it's not like Fagon even has to do much because the bar is set so low at the moment with Cersei at the helm.
That's why Kevin had to die. He's like, sorry, Kevin, you're a good man, but you're
too good at your job. I need an absolute mad woman in front of this, because it'll make chaos. Yeah, chaos is a ladder, as the classic.
It's like, look, we've talked to the focus groups, and drunken, unhinged Cersei is what we want. So sorry.
It's gonna make things so much easier.
Cool. Well, in case you haven't figured out, this is obviously a foam sword, so fear not. And this is, if you have a real sword, don't handle it like this. Don't rest your head on it. Don't hold it against your neck. Only do that with the foam sword. Just PSA.
So the answer. So why did Illyrio give Dany the eggs and not Griff? I mean, first and foremost, he didn't expect those eggs to hatch. But ultimately, I think the master plan was always for Fagon and Dany to rule together and to quickly and quietly merge the Blackfyre and Targaryen lines back together, just not tell anyone about the Blackfyre part. And it was just supposed to be more symbols of legitimacy, the eggs, just like presenting Fagon with a sword would be his symbol of legitimacy.
Yeah, we can get into Illyrio and Varys'. We have actually done many streams about that. I tend to think that maybe they didn't care about what happened to Daenerys or those eggs. It was all a matter of like getting the Dothraki to invade Westeros.
Yeah, I stick to the idea that Viserys was a false. What Viserys and the Dothraki were supposed to be a false flag for then Fagon and the Golden Company to swoop in and be like, "Look, we saved the kingdom from the tyrannical son of the Mad King, and we'll bond this together with a marriage pact with Daenerys and unite the realm together." And that is again, that's going War of the Roses. That's Henry Tudor marrying a woman from the House of York and sewing up the schism between the houses of Lancaster and York.
Because think about what Because think about what Illyrio is trying to do when he is selling Daenerys to Drogo. He is trying to sell her as more. He's trying to play up her value. Oh, she's the blood of Valyria, no doubt. Let's put her in a purple dress, play up the eyes. Yep, let's brush her hair. Let's give her dragon's eggs. She's basically a homeless girl. So they're trying to pass her off as Targaryen princess. The eggs help because they need Drogo to treat her like his queen and not like some sex slave, so that when she's killed or Viserys is killed or whatever they do, like he cares enough to invade Westeros. You know, that's the thing. They have to get him invested in this enough to do that. So I think that's why the eggs are there. But I mean, they're there because George wanted Dany to have the eggs. Originally, they were going to find him in the Red Waste, and he changed that to the Illyrio giving them to her. So finding the eggs in the Red Waste would have been way more classic fantasy. So you can see why that was like the first idea.
But the fat man's plans keep changing. We've heard that line.
I like where he landed with Alyssa Farman and all that. That's hilarious to me. And I love the Ashai connection. So check out our Who is Quaithe stream for all the Alyssa Farman goodness. And if you want all that psychic dragon egg stuff, that's Dreams Come from Dragons and John's Dragon Dream, the videos you want for those.
Yeah. And of course, there has to be more to Fagon because why is Illyrio carrying the torch for this kid so hard? Right? He's propping this kid up with his own immense wealth. Like a lot of this is coming directly out of pocket from Illyrio. And so much to the point that he is willing to let the doors of the Prince of Pentos' palace, that's a tongue twister, but forever be closed on him. And it's why it's because he lost all of that. And it's why because love is the death of duty, because he's carrying the torch for someone. And that is why the idea of his late wife, the woman that he met in the Lyseni Pleasure Garden, being a Blackfyre woman and Fagon being his son, and this all being like carrying on the torch for your loved ones. That's why you're personally financing this whole big thing. That's why it makes so much sense to me with Illyrio and Fagon Blackfyre being our end result.
Yep, I'm into it. I like the whole plot. I think it's cool. I liked those chapters from the beginning, the Tyrion on the Royne chapters. You know, and one thing to your point, like there's no mention of Aerion anywhere in here, or in any of Fagon's chapters, really.
No,
Trugon. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing it. Clowny Brown. My apologies. Trugon. That's it. Yeah.
Like I get. I don't like Bright Flame Theory,
and that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for coming out, everyone. Oh no, Tim, I'm sorry. Were you saying something?
I get why people are attached to it, but I just think it's an idea that died on the vine. It went the way of, He's mentioned in Game of Thrones, but so too is Tyrion doing tumbles and cartwheels. But by Clash of Kings, we're hearing about the Blackfyres and Tyrion's hips hurt. Like things just changed.
Yeah,
Ideas
I
coming
think you're
back.
right. I think the main point of Aryan is like the dragon dreams and the wildfire, and it says something about Ares, et cetera, et cetera. Can we get a playlist of all the streams with Tim? Uh, that would be hard to come up with. It's a good idea. That would be hard to make though, because I'd have to go through each live stream one by one. Do you have any thoughts on Maelys' lost children names symbolism? Baenor and Maenor. Where was Baenor from?
First of all, yeah, I have to ask you where you're getting Baenor from. Maynard was the only one mentioned, but we can look
That's
up.
like Bloodraven being Maynard Plum.
I guess we could look up the roots for Maynard.
Yeah, I'm not. It just seems like another cobbling together of various prefixes.
So Maynard, derived from Maynir, comes from Cornish, meaning standing stone. And the names Maynard with an A and Maynard with an E have Germanic roots meaning brave strength or hardy knight.
Hmm.
And the name
Maynard.
Manar is of Arabic origin and means lighthouse or beacon of light. All of those kind of go hand in hand with what with waking dragons from stone if these eggs are dusty and dead, and Maynard being the beacon of light that guides dragons into the world had Maelys' plans actually succeeded.
Maenad is they are female followers of Dionysius. So this would be the Maiden's men. Maiden's women. Those are like a flip. So the female followers of Dionysius. Okay, so the Maiden's men are men following Nissa potentially. Yeah, it's a flip. Let's see here. The Maenads are the raving ones. Mad, to be angry. So that kind of makes sense as like Maelys' son.
Yeah. You'd be mad too if your dad burned you alive.
Yeah, you would.
Because some scroll that some pirate you met 2 weeks ago said to.
Those Dionysian rituals, they can get pretty out of control.
And maybe your Edward Mordrake vestigial talking head whispering dark things into your ear.
And so there are the Niciads, and I do think Nissa's name goes back to this, and it has to do with the nurses of Dionysius. So Nissa is, as a child of the forest woman, as I theorize, is like the nurse of the green men. It kind of makes sense. Or you could just say they're both tied to the same folklore. Dionysius is a horned god, and then we have the Nyssa. So this is the district. The nymphs. Where's the Niciads? They are water nymphs. That I know.
Yeah. And we talked about the Wanderer. Aldebaran, I brought up a lot, as the red star. It means wanderer, and it wanders after the Hyades, which are water nymphs, but that's all Euron symbolism.
So the 2003 draft said Baenor. And the 2004 one changed it to Maynor. Not of terrible importance, just a thing. Would Alyssa Arryn and the Weeping Lady of Lys be Nissa? Yes, you're opening a Pandora's box there. There's basically two forms of female names. There's all the Ash names, and there's all the Laia related names. Nissa is sort of he's made it adjacent to Laia, because Laia is Lysa, Lyanna, Alyssa, Alyssane, All the Lysa figures, those are all Night's Queen figures more than Nissa figures. So Weeping Lady of Lys, the Tears of Lys, that ties back to the tears of Alyssa's tears. It's a frozen waterfall. The wall is a frozen waterfall. Queen Alysanne goes to the wall and has ice blue eyes and rides Silverwing and Ice Dragon symbolically. So yeah, all the Alyssa names, those are Lyanna is obviously Blue Winter Roses. So the Nissa names are the ones that are tied to the ash tree. So Ashara, Asha, Ash, the children of the forest, Ashara Dane, I said that, because Ashera is a tree goddess like Nissa. There's more, but you get the idea. Nissa and Night's Queen are at least separate archetypes. They may end up being the same literal spirit, but they are different archetypes. So that is the sense in which I'm speaking. Yes, and Rowan is a wildling, and Rowan is a mountain ash. So that's another ash name. And the Catwoman names are also Nissa. So Cersei, she's a cat. Catelyn is a cat. Sansa has cat's eyes. Arya goes by Cat of the Canals. On and on and on. But, like I said, Pandora's box. So, we are talking about Maelys the Monstrous, and we are basically finished. Do you have closing thoughts?
Yeah, just that. So, Tyrion chapters, as we've learned, tend to give away a lot, and that's why George finds himself going back and editing them whole cloth. I do think because of this chapter, because of what they talked about and why it was scrapped, again, I do think this is another case of giving too much away too soon. I'm sorry to all the Trugon fans or to all of the Bright Flame fans, but after coming upon this and seeing other, seeing the ideas that were scrapped before the book split, I just can't see anything other than Fagon being a Blackfyre and this invasion being the 6th Blackfyre rebellion being funded by Illyrio and Varys.
I think I'm most interested by far in whether or not Martin ends up keeping the idea that they had eggs and that Maelys Blackfyre did a child sacrifice to try to hatch one of those eggs. Because this is the only place where that information exists. It is not in anywhere else. So we don't know if George is going to use that as canon or not. It's unconfirmed. It's something he thought about. Part of the reason he may have scrapped this is because he changed the ideas. Or after having scrapped it, he would have been free to make different ideas instead about eggs and things. But I wouldn't be surprised. The Blackfyres absolutely could have eggs, as we said. And it would be a very interesting plot point if Fagon had some. So that could be the reason why he was putting them in here in this Fagon chapter, in this chapter with Fagon, and they're talking about, the Blackfyres have eggs. The obvious reason to do that would be that Fagon's going to end up with some of those eggs. So I strongly suspect, now that I think about it that way, that George may have eggs pop up in King's Landing for Fagon to try to hatch. That would be sick.
Mm-hmm.
We can always use more botched blood magic rituals, Because, think about it. John Conn, he's got a parallel of Alan Cockshaw in The Mystery Knight. And Fagon and John the Fiddler are parallels. And what's John the Fiddler doing? Dreaming of a dragon's egg and trying to hatch it. Or thinking that he's going to.
Yeah. Well, Fagon is like the culmination of every Blackfyre and every Aegon, because there is something, he has at least one thing that can tie him to every other Targaryen, especially the ones named Aegon. He is the boy king. He stands out and says, just like the young dragons, when he launched his war on Dorne, you have a dragon, he stands before you. He paraphrases that when deciding to take the Golden Company west and abandon the Dany plan. We talked about the possible reverse Rhaenyra situation if he gets eaten by a dragon. He has the Aegon the Third. He's the boy with the giant man protector because he has Raleigh Duckfield. Aegon, the young boy giant man protector comes up with Aegon the Third, Egg, and Joffrey. So that's all. Those are parallels to more kings. Joffrey and the Hound.
Well, Bran and Hodor. Bran's going to be a king too, and he's Prince of Winterfell.
Bran and Hodor. And the giant man protector is a man who is not a knight, but encompasses the things of what a knight should be. The Hound is more.
And even little Pod Payne, who has Brienne, look at the sigil of House Payne. They're golden dragons on a field of purple and white. So it's literally like Targaryen symbols packed into a sigil.
Yeah. But as a Blackfyre,
and a pod is the same thing as an egg because it's a seed pod and it's an egg. A similar idea.
Oh, don't get me started on pod people and plant people. We went through that on another behind the scenes thing when I was talking to you about homunculuses and mandrakes and all that.
Yeah, I guess that does tie back. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are mandrakes in the Golden Company, guys who claim to be mandrakes.
It's all connected, Tim.
It's I see what you're doing, George. I see what you're doing. Just finish the book. That's about all. It's really all we can say is we've gone too long without a book, man.
It's true. But we did unearth some never before read A Song of Ice and Fire text for the crowd today, and I'm sure that thrilled everyone. So please do leave your comments below after we finish up the stream. Let us know what you think. Yeah. Will Fagon have dragon's eggs in King's Landing? And if he does, will he try to hatch them?
Yeah. And of course, there are other pages to these draft pages from the Cushing, Texas A&M. Other ideas that didn't quite make it or got tweaked somewhere along the way with some Jaime and Cersei chapters and some Daenerys and Jon stuff that didn't make it into the final product. So the Cushing, these draft pages really are a treasure trove all their own.
There you go. And so this was, thanks for bringing this to us, Tim. This was a nice combination of like peeking behind the curtain as well as just talking about the life and times of Maelys Two Heads. And yeah, so there you go. And I hope you all enjoyed the thumbnail. Somebody commented earlier and said that the thumbnail got them busting out laughing in the store or the library or something. Mm-hmm. So the transparent gray waist Tim in the captain's hat keeps on giving and giving. Appreciate you wearing it.
Yeah. I appreciate you using my suggestion for the thumbnail.
I was like, you know what? Let's just do it.
I mean, it's funny. It's an attention grabber.
I think it's a pretty good thumbnail, honestly. And in case you like didn't look at it carefully and didn't notice what it was doing. It was doing this. See, the arrow actually does. See, if you just look a little closer, it's not, in fact, a baby's head. It is, in fact, Gray Waist Tim.
Whispering in his ear, do it, Maelys.
Probably doesn't smell very good right there, does it?
Do it. Kill him. Let the hate flow through you.
And here's him twisting off the head of the person that he should be serving, Daemon Blackfyre. So, rough, brutal. He was a monster. All right, yeah, Tim's got the ear stink. Exactly that Maelys ear stink. It's probably not good. Okay, on that note, appreciate y'all. Watch out for, like I said, another Maegor video this week. This time it's not Lizard People Maegor. It's Maegor was a bad king Maegor. All right. And then I will see you next week with the Winds of Winter Iceberg. Make sure you subscribe to Gray Waist Tim. Biting my cheek today. Gray Waist Tim. His link is in the description below. Actually, just click on his name. It's a hyperlink. Amazing stream, y'all. As always, appreciate you. Christian with all the great comments. Appreciate all our mods and the rest of our chat, except for that one guy we had to ban. And yeah. Cheers and happy Sunday.
Good night.
No, whoops. Where's the button? There it is.